Hello, everybody. I hope that you are having a good day. We're going to give this StreamYard another try. I think I've sort of kind of solved why my streams were coming in through not as clear. So you guys let me know whether the picture that you guys can see is as clear as it should be and that you are used to. And if that's all coming through good, well and dandy, we're good. Then I fixed it. Hooray me. I'm so smart and amazing. If it's not, then I'm just clueless, utterly clueless. But yeah, drop a comment, say what's going on. We're gonna have a pretty decently chill stream. Again, we're on StreamYard. We're using StreamYard, which means the call-in is a lot smoother. Let's put it that way. Calling in is a lot smoother. Still slightly blurry than normal, to me at least. Well, dude, wear some glasses. Okay. Let me see, actually. It's funny because I wish I could show you guys this. So I got a monitor here that's showing me what's being streamed on YouTube. And then I got a monitor here that's showing supposedly what's being streamed on YouTube. And they look different. But whatever, I'm not going to explain the complications of what I had to do. But basically now I have a direct camera line going into StreamYard instead of the camera being picked up by another software, and then that software virtually feeding StreamYard my picture. You guys don't care about that. Just letting you know, it takes a lot of work. You got to figure out somehow that these things need to work together and get along, right? So yeah, whatever. I don't care. This is what you get. But the good thing is, here's the good thing. Should I tell you what the good thing is? I'll tell you what the good thing is. The good thing is I'm not getting a notification right now that's telling me that my internet is somehow slow, which is what it was doing. My guess is it was doing that because of all the complications there, okay? So yeah. Okay, let's all say hello to each other. What's up? What's going on Fire for Jesus? Apologetic. How you doing? Welcome. Mr. Jason Abnos is in the house. Jason, I'm sorry that you had a very negative weekend because your team just got like crushed. But it's okay, dude. First game of the season. It's all good. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Mr. David, how you doing, brother? And by the way, I don't have access to my entire audio collection because I'm using StreamYard and it's not working with my Stream Deck, whatever. But we're going to do this anyway. Lex, how you doing? Maybe it's not the blurriness, it's the color saturation. Maybe it is. I don't know, man. Carl's happy because we're using StreamYard. He enjoys StreamYard more than Ecamm because StreamYard doesn't heat up his phone when he calls in. And let's see, back to StreamYard. Jane. Okie dokie. Whatever you say. What's up, Pat? How you doing, man? Your bought N64 but not PS5, if that makes sense. Doesn't make sense. But like, I have high quality stuff. I got high quality H2O. I got high quality equipment. I want to use it to the best of its abilities. This thing is supposed to be streaming at 720p. Okay. I don't want to hit it to 1080 because then it'll kind of go crazy maybe and give me issues, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. That's fine. Jerome, bro, I click on the stream and it's literally first frame is Arthur punching his hand. Ah! I think so. I think they'll do well. Hey, dude. Okay, so here's what happened. I forgot to pick a captain. I forgot that it just like automatically picks a captain for you. I made a couple of silly mistakes with my lineup. So don't worry about it, bro. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. What up, Mr. Nick Quint? You guys, do me a favor. Like, actually interact with calling. Yeah, I gotta like teach some of you guys to like call in. I don't want to put clickbait. Sorry for touching the mic that much. I don't want to put clickbait titles like, come on by, you weak atheists, challenge me, right? But y'all need to like interact with me, especially on Tuesdays, because we want to, and like that's the point. Like we want to talk to each other. And it's much easier. You call in, I'm gonna click a button, your face is gonna show on the screen. It's all good. It's all good in the hood. So we're giving StreamYard another try. I think it's looking good so far, so I'm good with that. Let's try something here. Okay. Present, share screen, and here's David Wood talking about an unborn child explaining the trend. I preferred this, but I think I gotta. If I. Ooh, look at that. See, I like that. I like that. So, tell me if the audio is.
I was almost aborted.
We're just testing stuff.
My mom got pregnant with me when she was 15. My dad was 17 at the time, and he was a drug dealer. So having an abortion, getting rid of this old lump of cells, would have been a pretty convenient move for both of them. My mom got pregnant again a year or two after she had me, and she had an abortion then. So they took out one of my siblings. My mom and her sister combined got pregnant 5 times when they were in their teens. They had 3 abortions, and me and my cousin Brandy. 40% survival rate for the original 5. My mom had another abortion when I was a teenager, another sibling gone, and then she had my 2 brothers. I'm glad my mom didn't abort me because I had some pretty dope stuff to do, as you're about to see in this very video. Now, the abortion debate usually centers around issues like when human personhood begins and what rights a woman has over what goes on in her own body. But as with most moral debates, I think about this in terms of imaging God and degrading the image of God. Let's read a quick passage from the opening chapter of the Bible, Genesis 1, verses 26 through 28. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. Now, in my video, Norm Macdonald, The Image of God, we discussed.
Yeah, like I wasn't gonna watch that entire thing. I just want to do that because it's fun. And then I gotta pull up my Bible. My Bible software's not up. You guys, this Friday. What's going on, man? I feel like less people are joining these streams, and I want to know why. Y'all got the notifications, right? This Friday, we have a live stream that's coming up. Okay. So let me see how this shares. Ooh, present. Share screen. Yeah, so this Friday we have a live stream coming up with Logos Bible Software, where we will be giving you a demo, how you can use the software, and then there's also going to be a discount code that we're going to give you if you want to purchase the software. That's going to get you a good percentage off on the software itself. So this Friday's stream is going to be a Logos stream. I'll be posting about that just to give you guys a heads up. So that's the Bible software that I use whenever you see it on the screen. So this thing that's going on, yep, that's it. If you want to make it bigger, you can do that. But it's a phenomenal software. That's good. But if we need to, I guess, if we really, really need to. Do that one. Ooh, I can do that too. That's that. Okay. I heard something funny the other day. When asked what is a woman, the answer was your mother. That's good. Ah. Oh, that's hilarious. Question: if I have Logos 9, do I have to update to Contour using it? What? Oh, continue using it. No, you can have Logos. You've purchased the software, so you have Logos 9. But if you want, so there's a couple of ways you can upgrade your Logos software. One of them being you can upgrade just the features. Okay, so you basically pay to get the features, and then now you have your Logos 9 library with the features that come with Logos 10. Or you can upgrade the features, so you can upgrade to Logos 10 plus upgrade your library. So what I did, because I had a pretty decently like hefty package, so I have like 4,000 something books in Logos. And I got this when it was Logos 8. I got this library package. What I just did is I didn't want to add any more to my library. I just kind of feel like if I want to upgrade stuff, I just buy books because you can buy individual books into your library. And I just got essentially the upgrade, which I if you have Logos 9 and you're good with it, just get the upgrade of your it depends, right? Like it depends what you're using the software for. And one of the things we're gonna try to do on Friday, and I'm gonna have someone on, and we'll probably maybe even do it over StreamYard. But what we will aim at doing is showing folks how they can use it to, like, if they're preachers and if they're teachers, using it in that kind of a sense, and then individuals who are your kind of average Christian who just wants a software to use, and how they can benefit from that and see growth in that. So we're going to do our best to provide both of those. Again, that's on Friday. Make sure you don't miss that. Arthur, you go to church every week, right? Yes, that's pretty accurate. At least I try to. At least once a week. I mean, like, so I'm doing some traveling, traveling slash whatever. So, but like in September, I'm gonna miss probably 1 or 2 weekends. That doesn't usually happen. And then not this week, the upcoming weekend, I will be gone because of a tournament. So obviously, because I'm not preaching, I don't have to be there. But obviously, I want to be there with my church community and friends, and so I'm there, and we ought to meet together. So I'm there at least once a week. Thursdays we have Bible studies, and then also Sundays. But yes, tell me if you have a backup to that. By the way, oh, folks are coming in. What's up, yos? This is my good guy Hachik right here. Mike Ross, how you doing? Righteous through Christ. Good afternoon, brother Arthur. Hello, everyone in the chat. What's up? What's up? What's up? We usually have 15 to 20 people. Correct. Yes, that's the numbers. In the book, How to Read a Book, there's a part that talks about linking concepts from books you've read to the books you're reading. It seems like Logos does that for you. How? How does Logos do that? Well, yeah. So if you're doing a topical search, it'll do that. But that's a completely different concept that Mortimer Adler came up with. But yeah, I see what you mean there. Is that some sort of requirement? No, it's not some sort of a requirement. It's not like if you don't go, then you're going to go to hell or something, right? No. Again, Jerome, I'd use this very simply in the sense of like, hey, man, like you have family dinner with your family. And so your church family is your family and you want to hang out with them. Connection is unstable if you're on Wi-Fi. Try plugging in to your router or moving closer to it. Yeah, I'm plugged in. Liar. Also, please ask them to explain feature sets and upgrade paths when they're on. We will answer questions. So what I would like is for you guys to be on live with us and then answer your questions. So if you have this question, please bring it to Friday. And then, yeah. So the interview might push me over the edge enough to buy it. Hey. Went through that. How did last Sunday go at church? Were you preaching, right? I was preaching. It went great. I think I gave a pretty decent sermon, which I am currently editing, and I'm almost done. Like it'll be on the channel sometime today. I think it's about a 45-minute sermon. If you guys are interested in hearing a sermon this week, I've done that as much as I have been able to in regards to, preaching and then saying, I thought that was pretty good. I'll put it on my channel. This is not, again, a preaching channel like that. So I try not to. And I also think like there's stuff I say to my community and that's not necessarily for the world. But I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll do that. So I think it went well. There's some people who are in the chat right now who were at the service on Sunday. They can tell you whether it was a good sermon or not. When you're traveling, do you try to attend service elsewhere? I have tried doing that, but there's also been times where I haven't. It really, really depends. So one of the weekends that I might be gone. So I'll give you an example. Like on the 26th, 27th, I'm not necessarily traveling. My son has a weekend tournament, and I'm going to be at the tournament Saturday all day pretty much, and Sunday, if they make it to the final, Sunday all day. And it's like I can't go to church. But if I'm like on vacation somewhere, I've tried doing that. I can't say that's a regular habit I have or something, but I know there are people who have that habit. Yeah. Jerome said, call that long. I'm not in a position. No, it is. It tends. So I had planned to speak for 40 minutes. But sermons usually, I think 35 to 40 minutes would be like the sweet spot of a sermon. 20-minute sermons, even 30-minute sermons. I'm not, as an audience, like I'm good with a 40, 45-minute sermon. And I just went I think I went 3 minutes over the time I had set for myself. So that's actually very good for someone like me who tends to rabbit trail. I tell you it was bad, but Arthur would say I'm grumbling. Haha. Right. Do everything without grumbling. This is interesting in regards to the metrics I'm seeing. Very, very interesting. Do we not have our usual fighters in here? Jerome, all the atheists have abandoned you and left you alone. Defend for yourself. Wow, Jerome dropping straight up bombs, dude. He said, I'm not fans of most of the people who show up in here, in fact. Did you guys notice the glasses? I got my glasses back, guys. I got my square lenses back. Dropping names now. Darken and Supper all day I appreciate a lot, but the rest of them are okay. That's cool, dude. You know that is really cool that you guys have built like a community and friendship off of internet and like Skype together or whatever. You know, that's Skype. That's is Zoom. But whatever, video message back and forth. I just noticed something, guys. You guys, when I hit present and I'm sharing a screen, I get that notification that says, let's see, that like my internet's whatever. But when I got rid of it, it went away. Interesting. Discord is in fact very good. Yeah, yeah. You know, gaming nerds. Dude, I've been on some Discords where I left because it was like too much. It was giving me anxiety. Just saying. Hey, look, Sean's in the house. What's up, Sean? He said, "Oi." I can hear my own heart beating. Wow, congratulations, Mike. Mike has been promoted. Pine Creek actually made me a mod on this channel today. You know what? And I can't allow for that. Well, like I can allow for you to be a mod on this channel, Mike. Like that's Sean can't have Discord. It's like environmentally damaging or something. I'm only on Discord for the fantasy chat. Well done. I just promoted Mike to a mod on my channel. I'm not gonna allow for Pine Creek to have him as a mod on his channel. Did you guys hear that? I hope you guys heard that. So you got cyberbully. You didn't get cyberbully. I'd show him what I showed you guys all day. I put up a meme on Discord today, Sean, and I wrote, this was Sean yesterday, and it says, the atheist creed, there is no God, and I hate him. Because that's what you kept saying God was weird yesterday. 2 promotions in one day, Mike. That's it, bro. It's done. There's a better way of transitioning those. How about I just make everybody a mod? Therefore, it's pure socialism. Everybody's equal. What do you mean? How can you share a video or a photo? Where? On Discord? You just put in a. It's like texting, dude. It's like group texting. Come on, Hodge. I believe that everybody is ontologically equal. Yes, in their being, because they're made in the image of God, but not in their roles. That's why some of you guys are mods and some of you guys aren't, Jerome. Or if everyone is a mod, then no one is correct. Correct. No, you can't share. How are you going to share a picture live? You can't. You're not on with me. Send it to me, text it to me, and then I'll share it. It's got to go through a filtration process. I'm just playing. It's all good. I'm going to change the title of this stream to like atheists are stupid. Wait, what was a play on words? Don't you already believe that? How is that a play on words? Okay, I'm just gonna put this up, but Hotch, you gotta explain it, dude. Did someone use this as an announcement video or something? Tell me what's going on in this picture, my friend. So this says canceled Liverpool train tickets in the Chelsea video. Oh, Brighton to London. I haven't seen the announcement video. So oh, this is hilarious. It says Liverpool. This is the that is funny. That's a nice jab. It's okay. Just can't wait until Chelsea come to Anfield. More reason to just smash them. Yeah, we'll see. It seems like they're going after some guy from France or Germany or something. I kind of like I want Liverpool to sign some like random unknown name, right? Like for like 30 mil or something. And then the guy just ends up being like fantabulous. Sean, you don't think hell exists, man? Seem to be sending a lot of people there without thinking it actually exists. Once you moderate a channel, this is a very interesting point. Once you moderate a channel, you typically treat all channels with more respect because it's hard work. Keeping up is hard work, right? Alpha says, "Do you think Islam is evil?" See, here's what I would prefer. I This is just my personality, by the way. I would prefer to think about things in a more right or wrong context rather than moral categories. Okay, because they're truth statements, and then you can have a whole discussion as to whether statements in that religion should be followed, shouldn't be followed, whether those things would be good or bad or evil, X, Y, and Z. Okay. So I think it's wrong. I think it's false. By the way, I have a question back to you, Alpha. What's the point of this question? Like, say I said yes. What would you gain from it? Anyway, there's no music I'm listening to. I'm just Hey, the United game should have ended in a tie. By the way, I saw a post. Some guy had put $10 and got every single weekend prediction right. He ended up winning like $46,000 or something. That was kind of intense. I think BR Football had posted it. By the way, just in case someone criticizes me for not calling in, the only reason why I haven't done so is because the convo would be about a Christian video that Arthur has definitely not watched. Yeah, probably right. Maybe I should watch it live on air. Then you can get my raw thoughts. Wow, Liverpool rivals roundup. Manchester City move for West Ham's Lucas Paqueta. Could have a knock on the transfer effect. Well, oh, that doesn't answer anything. I know they were in for Paqueta. You know who I would like at Liverpool? Bruno Guimaraes. That guy would be good. Chouameni, I take that guy. Splash the money, get him, man. Oh, I'm not watching an hour-long video. No, maybe tomorrow night. I can send it to you if you want to. I would have talked about how bad some of us are on the internet. And by us, I mean atheists. Liverpool needs Jesus. No, we don't. He's injured and he's at Manchester. Sorry, he's at Arsenal. He didn't play first weekend. We have 6 forwards anyways. Why would we need Jesus? Makes no sense, man. Like, Sean, you don't even follow the sport, dude. Like, we need a defensive midfielder. We don't need a winger. Got plenty of those. Come on, dude. You got to get your transfer stuff right on. There's plenty of bad Christians on the internet as well. Amen to that, Jackson. Wink, wink, wink. Why didn't he play, by the way? I think he is injured, right? Goretzka, man. Goretzka would be good too. The in FIFA, the career mode I'm playing, Goretzka ended up coming to Liverpool. So I'm doing FIFA scouting to see who Liverpool could sign. Okay, I'll try. Let's see. Oh, it's the David Wood. So I watched part of this. Not like I started watching it. I like 5 minutes in or something like that, and I stopped because I think I was driving somewhere. Are people seriously making fun of David Wood for his son's passing away? His son passing away? What kind of a low life do you have to be, man? If you, whether you're religious or not, right? Like if you're making fun of someone for the loss of their child, you're like the lowest of the low. You're scum. Play some FIFA too. Sorry. No, not necessarily. So I haven't seen. Okay, so Jerome is saying it wasn't. It was a lot of it's from atheists, I guess. I'm actually gonna play it. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. Let me change the playback speed to 1.25, and I want to watch this. Whoa.
Imagine you've waited 9 months, and the magical day is finally here. Your son is about to be born. The doctors and nurses gather round. Don't push yet. Don't push yet. Okay, now push, push. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, is that his head? Looks like a kiwi. So much blood. Everything is so slippery. How do these people manage to hold on to tiny little babies covered in goo? Okay, he's out now. They put him on a table to clean him up. This is when they're supposed to let dad cut the cord, but they don't this time. You can't really tell what's going on because of the growing crowd of doctors and nurses surrounding that little table. You see a doctor slap your son on the leg. A few seconds later, he slaps him harder, then harder. Why is he slapping your son so hard? Is this guy trying to get his teeth knocked out? Now, if you're anything like me, the sound of a baby crying is pretty much the most annoying sound in the universe. But all of a sudden, you realize that there's a much, much worse sound than a baby crying. And that's the sound of silence when your baby should be crying. Then you notice one of the nurses using an ambu bag to pump breaths into your baby.
So yeah, David Wood doesn't talk that fast. So actually putting him at 1.5 is sort of kind of like normal.
Is he dead? They don't tell you. They're too busy rushing him out of the room. And by that point, trust me on this, you would give anything you have. You would give your right arm. You would give your life just to hear your baby cry. But all you get is silence. So that's what happened in November of 2007 when our third son, Reed, was born. He was what they call a floppy baby. He had a heartbeat, but apart from that, he wasn't crying or breathing or moving. Most of his muscles weren't working. There are lots of different problems that can cause floppy baby syndrome. If a baby's muscles aren't functioning, that can be due to a problem in the brain, a problem in the nerves, or a problem in the muscles themselves. So doctors start running tests to figure out what's wrong. It took a couple of months to get a diagnosis. A lab eventually discovered that Reed had X-linked myotubular myopathy, MTM for short, which is a rare genetic muscle disease. MTM usually only affects boys because it's X-linked. It's a problem with the X chromosome. Girls have 2 X chromosomes, so even if they get a bad one, the good one compensates. Boys have 1 X chromosome, so they inherit either the good one or the bad one, which means that if the mother is a carrier, any sons born to her will have a 50-50 chance of getting the disease. Boys who get the disease will have extremely weak muscles. In recent years, medical researchers managed to cure the disease in mice and then in dogs. So all of the families of kids with MTM were looking forward to a cure. The cure seemed like it was right around the corner. But when doctors began human trials, there were side effects, namely liver failure. Kids whose muscles were being repaired started dying of liver failure. So researchers had to go back to the drawing board, and a cure is going to take longer than we hoped. This past April, my wife Marie was taking Reed to watch a play. He was happy and laughing. Then an alarm on his monitor went off. His oxygen level started dropping. Marie and the nurse went into emergency mode. We'd been there plenty of times before. Reed's heart rate shot up, then his heart stopped. Marie and soon paramedics tried to revive him, but he didn't make it. The next day, I posted this on Twitter. In 2007, our third son was born, but he wasn't moving or breathing. Once the doctors figured out what disease he had, they told us he had a 50% chance of reaching his first birthday and a 30% chance of reaching his second birthday. Yesterday, around 4:00 p.m., Reed went to be with Jesus. And on the picture I put, Reed Wood, 2007 to 2023, and on to eternity. The comments from Christians, Muslims, atheists, Hindus, and so on were overwhelmingly kind. Even people who ordinarily hate me said they didn't have any ill will toward my son. But this is the internet we're talking about. So you know it's not going to be all
So
prayers and
overwhelmingly good.
condolences. You know there are going to be
From
some
everyone.
adherents of a particular religious persuasion who are going to seize this opportunity to say something unpleasant. You know who I'm talking about. Atheists. To be fair, I did get some unfriendly messages from keyboard jihadis who said things like, "Your censored son right now." I'm not up to date on what words
Wow.
are politically incorrect, but I think I'm not supposed to say the R word. So that's supposedly my son Reed in hell. Your son Reed is now dirt, lol. You will never touch his hands again. You will never look at his face smiling to you. Reed is worm food now. Lol, good riddance on your son. It was a good day when your censored son died. Hopefully the next one will follow, censored. This guy photoshopped a pig's face
Wow.
over my son's face. What's with the French kiss, creep? Kissing on lips? Pedo would. Alhamdulillah. He's gone for better life than staying with a pedo dad.
So, like even in Islamic theology, so here's my kind of comment on this. Like, so this is a physically handicapped person. I'm not sure about mental faculties and stuff. I don't know much about the sickness. But like I'm sure like even in Islamic theology, you got a category of like how individuals who can't function fully like deal with God and judgment and stuff like that. And to make comments like he's worm food or it's just like, oh man.
Notice there's no real content in these comments. It's just keyboard jihadis trying to figure out how to hurt my feelings. Good luck with that one. You know what's weird?
They're trying to hurt my feelings. For anybody who doesn't know, David Wood doesn't have feelings. He doesn't feel anything.
There's something kind of adorable about these guys spending the past 15 years searching for some secret formula to make me sad. It's like toddlers trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. They actually remind me of when I was a little kid. There was a railroad track behind our trailer park, and a coal train went by every day. I spent years trying to derail that train. I pried up hundreds of railroad spikes that held the tracks in place. I covered the tracks with rocks and whatever else I could find. Nothing ever affected the train. I'd be there for hours piling stuff on the tracks, and the train would just plow right through it. You keyboard jihadis are like kids trying to derail a coal train, and I'm the coal train. Choo-choo, buckaroos. But by all means, keep trying. People keep searching for Blackbeard's treasure. Why shouldn't you keep searching for D. Wood's feelings? And just think, if you succeed, you'll be rich. Because if you can come up with a way to get tears from these ice marbles, you'll have no problem striking oil in a bowl of oatmeal, or gathering a jar of honey from a slab of granite, or collecting a barrel of moonshine from the moon. Keep shining, superstars. Catty comments from atheists are different because there's usually some sort of moral condemnation involved. It's not just, ha ha, your son died. It's, David, you're evil because XYZ. For instance, in response to my tweet about my son's death, one atheist replied,
I should say, as someone who's spent time with David Wood and spent a decent amount of time. Number one, David Wood is a very big dude. He's very tall. He's also very strong. And he knows how to fight. Just saying.
disgusting. Only a Christian could use the death of a child to promote their religion. I wouldn't have said anything if you hadn't, but seriously, gone to be with Jesus? I could never bring myself to worship he who can't even give my child a working body. So Christians need to keep our mouths shut about our beliefs when a child dies. If we don't keep our mouths shut, then our behavior is disgusting. There's also a version of what's called the problem of evil, or the
What kind of a dumb comment is that? Okay, so this is from, he is surprisingly tall and he can rap, bro. Like the guy can rap. I have videos of him rapping. What's wrong with gone to be with Jesus? What's wrong with for a Christian to make that comment? Dude, like some of these atheists, man, like that's why you're on the internet and don't have friends, dude. Seriously.
argument from evil here. How can you worship a God who let your kid have a muscle disease? Quite refreshing. Unlike the keyboard jihadis, this guy's actually presenting meaningful criticisms so that he can help make the world a better place, a place where people with religious beliefs do not mention those beliefs when their children die. This is, of course, only one random atheist, so why even draw attention to, hey, wait a minute, 19 likes?
Wow.
Seriously, atheists? Then we have normies genuinely believe forcing a body to live past the neonatal period when it wasn't meant to is empathetic. Utterly
Basically, you should have had him killed.
sociopathic behavior. I think this is the first time in my life I've ever been called a normie, not the first time I've been accused of sociopathic behavior. I don't think this is even coherent. A normie is a normal person. Sociopathic behavior, pretty much by definition, is not normal. In a follow-up comment about Reed, we have, with his mental and physical capacity being a little more than a chair, I wouldn't exactly say he enjoyed anything. The idea here is that if someone doesn't enjoy life, his life isn't worth living, so he's better off dead. Now, I don't know what chairs are like where this person lives, but I've never seen a chair do the Reedy dance.
Wow.
I'm starting to think that in spite of having a debilitating muscle disease, Reed enjoyed life more than a lot of people who spend their time complaining on Twitter. But what do you think about the idea that if someone is born with a serious disability, you should let him die? You could make an argument for that position. You could say, well, ordinarily in the animal kingdom, an offspring with some sort of significant mental or physical defect is going to die very quickly. But because human beings are smarter and more advanced, we can take a baby that wouldn't survive 15 minutes and extend his life by 15 years. Just because we can extend life, however, doesn't mean that we should.
Yes, hello, Svetlana. Welcome to the Apologia Center channel. If you're new, I think you are. Does this David dude constantly get the hate mail from Muslims and atheists because he's a Christian? David Wood gets hate from a lot of Muslims because he's had a ministry for a number of years and a YouTube channel that he had grown to a significant amount of subscribers, doing anti-Islamic apologetics from a Christian worldview. By the way, he doesn't put this out there very much unless it's like professional. David Wood has a doctorate. The guy has a PhD in philosophy. He also has 2 master's degrees. And that's a dude that's been in jail. The fact that he went on, like, been in jail for, attempted murder, went on to get a bachelor's degree and then 2 master's degrees and a PhD in philosophy. He's a brilliant dude. He's smart dude. So yeah, he's had an apologetics channel predominantly dealing with Islam. That's partly why he gets the hate he does. And he's just an all-around fun guy to be around. I should say, I do have an interview. Well, sorry. There is an interview on my channel that was originally on David's channel, where when I went on his channel to speak about Armenia and Armenian Christians and the conflicts with Azerbaijan and Turkey and stuff like that. So you guys can go check that out. That was a really fun conversation. It's very difficult reading David because you don't know Well, I don't want to say you don't know what he's feeling. He's just not feeling anything. So you don't know what's going on. You say a joke, but he's funny. That's the thing. I think he's funny. Amen, huh? That's interesting.
Parents have an instinct to protect their children, and that instinct doesn't automatically turn off if a child has a disability. But that's where reason comes in. We can use our reason to say, even though I feel like I should protect my disabled child, maybe it's better to just let him go. Why put a child through a difficult life? Why use society's already limited resources to extend the life of someone who doesn't seem fit to survive? Something like that, right? Of course, once you decide that a baby with significant special needs shouldn't live, the next question is, since you've chosen to go down mass murder road or mercy killing road, depending on your view, how far are you willing to go? One of Reed's 4 brothers has the same muscle disease. He's 13 years old. It's a lot of work taking care of him. Should we pull the plug on his breathing machine? Let's ignore the normies for a moment. Suppose we decide to make tough choices for the greater good, and we put together a list of people who aren't fit to survive or who are a drain on resources. What sort of people will be on our death list? People with physical disabilities, mental disabilities, people with various diseases. What about old people? They're not contributing much once they've retired. We could turn them into food, like in Soylent Green. That was a spoiler, but a movie's like 50 years old, so stop whining or I'll add whiners to our death list. What about stupid people? Should they be removed from the gene pool? We don't want to end up with an idiocracy, do we? What if someone is just chronically unhappy, always miserable and depressed? Criminals? Poor people? Everyone we disagree with? There is no mix-up eugenics can't fix up, am I right? This may sound ridiculous to you, especially if you're a normie, but the world may already be heading in that direction, and it's not exactly a new idea. There's a short passage in The White Rose that's relevant here. The White Rose is a book about a resistance movement in Nazi Germany. 5 students and a professor distributed a series of leaflets encouraging Germans to oppose the genocidal regime. The students and the professor were caught and executed. Inga Scholl, who was the sister of 2 of the students, Hans and Sophie, eventually wrote a book about the movement and the events that led to their resistance. I had to read Die Weiße Rose in German back in college. Here's the relevant passage. Now and again, nurses from Schwäbisch Hall, former friends of her mother's, Sophie Scholl's mother, came to visit. In that city, there was a large hospital for mentally ill children. One day, one of the nurses called. She was despondent and distraught, and we did not know how to help her. Finally, she told us the reason for her grief. For some time past, her wards had been carted off by the black vans of the SS and sent to their death in gas chambers. After the first contingents failed to return from their secret journey, a strange disturbance agitated the children in the institution. Where are the trucks going, Auntie? They are going to heaven, replied the nurses in their helplessness and confusion. From that time on, the children mounted the strange trucks, singing. A physician in one of the mental hospitals protested, over my dead body. It is not known what became of him. A soldier came home from Russia on furlough. He was the father of one of these children. He had never ceased hoping that his child would be cured. He felt toward his son the love that only a father can feel. But when he arrived, the child was already dead. So the soldier was out fighting for the Nazi regime. He came home and went to see his son, but the party he was fighting for had already sent his son to a gas chamber without even bothering to notify him. By the way, it's a little ambiguous here, but the black trucks didn't take children to gas chambers. The black trucks were mobile gas chambers. They were called Gaswagen. The Nazis would load kids into the trucks, drive the kids to a mass grave, and gas them along the way. So the kids would already be dead by the time they got to the mass grave, where their bodies would be dumped. One problem the Nazis struggled to solve was soundproofing the trucks. The children would start screaming once they realized they were dying, and some drivers would be bothered by the sounds of mentally ill kids being executed a few feet behind them. The nurses couldn't do anything to stop this, so they would tell the children that the trucks were taking them to heaven, and the children would climb into the trucks singing songs until they realized they were dying. I can only imagine one of our enlightened Twitter atheists scolding the nurses for bringing religion into the discussion. So the idea that society should get rid of special needs children is nothing new, and people complaining about my wife and me taking care of special needs children is nothing new. I've been getting these messages for years. The best ones typically use the machine gun approach. They'll fire a bunch of different points at me all at once. Here's an example of the machine gun approach. This is before Reed died. Jordan says, "Hi, David. I started listening to Your Why I'm a Christian video. I'll put a link to that video in the description box in case you want to understand what he's talking about. And became convinced after about 8 minutes that you are censored." Again, I don't think I'm supposed to say the R word. "And insane. I also could not believe that your wife rolled the censored dice and basically purposely brought a," am I allowed to say this G word? I only knew the word from Pulp Fiction and from some perverted messages that Muhammad Hijab sent to the apostate prophet in me. And in both cases, it had something to do with bondage. So I didn't know what Jordan was talking about here, but I looked it up, and it's also a derogatory term for a person with a disability. Anyhow, I'll play it safe. I also could not believe that your wife rolled the censored dice and basically purposely brought a censored into the world who will be cruelly and inhumanly condemned to a miserable existence because apparently she is as censored and insane as you are. I mean, how evil do you two censored have to be to do that? It blows my censored mind, which got me thinking it's probably a good thing that your brother fried his censored brains. At this point, the whole family is suspect. Anyway, have a happy new year, you autistic piece of censored. Speaking of death lists, according to Jordan, my whole family should apparently be loaded into a gas wagon and taken to a mass grave. I'm sure there are plenty of keyboard jihadis who would agree with him. And speaking of my whole family, it's kind of weird that these guys always seem to know an awful lot about my wife, my kids, my brothers. They know everything about me. I wonder if some of these super fans have little D. Wood shrines on their dressers. Jordan mentions my brother Manny, who suffered some brain damage because of an overdose a few years ago. Manny had massive organ failure and went into a coma. While he was in a coma, our mom died of an overdose. Not sure why Jordan left my mom's death out of his email. Rookie mistake, Jordan. Unless this suggests some underlying mother issues. Put that one in the vault and save it for later. Doctors didn't expect my brother Manny to survive, but he did. He came out of his coma. He had to relearn how to walk and how to talk. He stayed clean for 3.5 years. Then recently he injured his foot and he went to a doctor who, unbeknownst to us, prescribed Manny opioid painkillers. Manny got hooked again, and I'm sure Jordan will be happy to hear that my brother Manny died of an overdose 3 weeks ago. So, Jordan, you can scratch Manny off your list. Jordan says that my wife rolled the dice and basically purposely brought a special needs child into the world. No idea what he means by purposely. We didn't intend for Reed to have MTM. I think Jordan might be referring to our fourth son, Paley, who also has MTM, but we didn't intend that either. After we found out that Reed's disease was genetic, we tried not to get pregnant again. But it turns out that nearly all forms of birth control are completely useless when the fortress is being stormed by what can only be described as the Delta Force piranha of tadpoles. I can't miss even when I try. So Marie got pregnant. Again, ultrasound showed that it was another boy, which meant there was a 50-50 chance that he would have MTM. That's probably why Jordan said we were rolling the dice. Apparently, Jordan thinks we should have had an abortion based on the 50-50
David
chance.
David
Wood
has a way with words, man. He's really does.
As an option, to which Marie replied, yes, my son has a 50% chance of having MTM, but he has a 100% chance of being loved. I thought that was a really cool thing to say, but according to Jordan's perfectly functioning moral compass, that was one of the most evil things ever said by anyone. So evil, in fact, that my entire family line is a danger to humanity, except for my mother, who is suspiciously absent from Jordan's email. One of the underlying moral principles for Jordan is that quality of life is more important than life. Quality of life trumps life. If someone is going to have a low quality of life, he's better off not living. Now, you can make that case in certain instances. Suppose someone is in constant agonizing pain with no hope and nothing to look forward to and wants to die. What do you do? I get that. But what if you're pregnant and your son has a 50-50 chance of having a disease that will leave him with really, really weak muscles, and the disease is somewhat close to being cured? According to our new friend Jordan, if you don't abort that baby, you're so undeniably evil that the world would be a better place without your entire family line. What if you have the baby anyway and he has MTM? According to another new friend, if you take care of him after he's born, you're a normie who behaves like a sociopath. What if you're a normie who behaves like a sociopath, so you take care of your son for 15 years and then he dies? Well, whatever you do, don't so much as mention any of your religious beliefs, because if you do, you might provoke the wrong atheist, who will be all too happy to remind you that you shouldn't worship God if he doesn't give your son properly functioning muscles. See how I assembled a full range of criticisms to absolutely bury myself in a coffin made of pure fear under 6 feet of airtight atheist reasoning? Let's see if I can Houdini myself out of this one. Okay, now that we're clear on what the criticisms are, I'm going to answer them. But David, why are you going to answer people who are saying all these mean things? Oh, there's a reason. There's a reason. But there's a pretty significant black hole-ish space-time bending obstacle here, because I'll be responding to people whose view of the world warps reality as I know it. They see the universe very, very differently from the way I see it. Their view of good, bad, right, wrong, moral obligation, and so on is radically opposed to my own, even on matters that involve the life and death of a baby. They haven't offered any foundation or justification for their claims, so the claims are just floating in the air like bubbles waiting to be popped. But if I simply say the opposite of what they say without any foundation or justification, then it's all just words to be led out to battle against other words, as Lewis once said. So I'm inclined to give some kind of framework to my views to show how it's all connected. Our new friends may say, but David, why should we listen to you, you heartless evil monster who takes care of special needs kids and also posts tweets about his beliefs? Well, you guys messaged me. You messaged me. Am I allowed to respond? Or is anyone who answers you evil and immoral? I carefully considered your claims, didn't I? How about carefully considering mine, so that at the very least, you'll understand why we see things so differently? Fair is fair, isn't it? Now, we could go into ethics and meta-ethics, but that might get boring and technical, and I want to keep things as simple as possible for our new Twitter friends. So I'm just going to share a story. Since we're partly analyzing Christianity here, I'll share a story from the Bible. And since we're talking about the ethics of killing my son, let's go through the story of God commanding Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. Atheists already love going to this story. They say, look at how wicked God is, ordering Abraham to kill his own son, which is ironic considering the messages they send me telling me I'm wicked for not killing my own son. So let's go through the story of Abraham and Isaac, but let's do something that our atheist friends almost never do. Let's try to understand it. Here goes. In the ancient world, your love for your God was measured by the value of the sacrifice you brought to the altar. The greater the value of your sacrifice, the greater your devotion to your God. Hence, in the land of Canaan, followers of the god Moloch believed that a man's ultimate act of piety was sacrificing his own child to Moloch. The priests would heat up a bronze statue of the pagan god until it was glowing. The devout would place their children into its fiery arms, and the children would burn. Then came Abraham. One of the most famous stories in the Old Testament, indeed one of the most famous stories in the world, is the story of God commanding Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. Abraham was so faithful to God that he was ready to obey God's command to sacrifice what was, to Abraham, the most precious thing in the world, his son Isaac. He loved God so much that he tied up his son, put him on a pile of wood, and was about to plunge a knife into him. Critics of the Bible look at this and say, God told Abraham to sacrifice his own son, and Abraham was going to obey him? How barbaric! What an evil book! The God of the Bible is a monster, and so is Abraham for obeying him. But as usual, the critics completely miss the point. And they're not simply missing some insignificant random point here. They're missing what may be the most amazing, life-changing, mind-blowing point that's ever been made in the history of forever. And I challenge every last one of you, Christian, atheist, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, whatever you may be, I challenge you to read through this with me until you get the point, and then find any story by anyone ever that's this deep, this profound, this powerful, this epic. Challenge accepted? Good. Genesis 22. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Abraham, of course, had another son, Ishmael, but Ishmael had been cast out in Genesis 21, leaving Abraham with Isaac as his only son and as his heir. God tells Abraham to take Isaac to the region of Moriah, which is the region of Jerusalem. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac. Notice that Isaac had to carry the wood on which he was to be sacrificed, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, Father? Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham obviously hadn't told anyone what he was about to do. Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. Interesting. Abraham, a prophet, says that God himself will provide a lamb for the burnt offering. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Who told Abraham to stop the sacrifice? The angel of the Lord. There are lots of angels in the Bible. The word angel simply means messenger. But this particular messenger, called the angel of the Lord here, is no ordinary angel. He's a messenger who speaks for God, but who is also identified as God. Even here in Genesis 22, the angel of the Lord speaks as God. He says, you have not withheld from me your son. So according to the angel of the Lord, Abraham was offering a sacrifice to him, to the angel of the Lord. Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. Abraham told Isaac that God himself would provide a lamb for the sacrifice. But God provided a ram. Where's the lamb? What about the lamb? Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. Where were they? The region of Moriah. Mount Moriah, just so you know, is the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. As we read in 2 Chronicles 3, then Solomon began to build the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David. So there's a specific mountain, Mount Moriah, and there's the region of Moriah. Abraham was somewhere in the area of Jerusalem. God showed him a specific place. God provided his own sacrifice. And for many centuries, Abraham's descendants would say, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me. The angel of the Lord declares, I swear by myself, I will surely bless you. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me. That is quite the promise. Thousands of years before any of us had ever heard about any of this, the angel of the Lord told some completely unknown guy who lived in the middle of nowhere that all nations on earth would be blessed through his offspring. But Abraham was ready to sacrifice his offspring, his son Isaac, when God told him to. Keep in mind, Isaac was no ordinary son. He was the son of promise. Years earlier, Abraham had complained that even though God had blessed him abundantly, God hadn't blessed him with a son to be his heir. And Abraham knew that it was already too late because he and his wife were way, way, way past their prime, to put it mildly. But God told him in Genesis 15 that he would indeed have a son and that his descendants would be like the stars in the sky. By the way, this passage is where we see what made Abraham unique among his contemporaries. Abraham wasn't unique because he was willing to sacrifice his son. There were pagans who were willing to do that. Abraham was unique because God kept making promises to him that sounded increasingly unbelievable, but Abraham kept believing that God was going to do what he promised. Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited to him as righteousness. In Genesis 17, God told him that the son of promise would be born to Sarah, who would be the mother of nations. God would establish an everlasting covenant through Isaac. So when God commanded Abraham to sacrifice his son, this was a very special son. This son was prophesied. This son would have a miraculous birth. The everlasting covenant would come through this son. And then God said, remember all that stuff I said about your son? Remember all the promises I made about him? You know how all of your hopes and dreams are riding on this one particular son? Now I want you to sacrifice him as a burnt offering. Abraham's God suddenly started sounding just like the gods of the pagans. Sacrifice your child to me. We look at this as people in the 21st century. We look at this as people who came long after the complete reversal of paganism that was about to take place. But try to think about this from the perspective of the people around Abraham. Abraham was surrounded by people who were convinced that the greatest thing they could ever do was sacrifice their children to their God. Abraham was ready to do it, but the angel of the Lord told him to stop. The takeaway message of the story of Abraham and Isaac for the surrounding culture was this: Abraham is just as devout as the most devout of any of you. He's the sort of person who's willing to do whatever his God commands. He loves his God so much that he's ready to sacrifice what he values most in this world. The difference between you and Abraham is not that Abraham is willing to sacrifice his son. Some of you are willing to do that too. The difference between you and Abraham is that Abraham's God doesn't want him to sacrifice his son. Abraham's God stops him from sacrificing his son. Abraham's God provides his own sacrifice. So, putting all of this together, God, who's no ordinary God, orders his prophet, who's no ordinary prophet, to sacrifice his son, who's no ordinary son, but the sacrifice is stopped by an angel who's no ordinary angel. End of story, right? Wrong. The story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And this story isn't finished because there was something about a lamb and an everlasting covenant and all nations being blessed through Abraham's offspring. You didn't forget about that, did you? Not going too fast for you, am I, atheists? So how was God going to bless all nations through Abraham's offspring? Well, we start getting some hints through the prophets. In Isaiah 53, we find a prophecy about...
Okay, so the rest of the video, I think he's going to go into prophetic stuff. I'll just leave that there. If you guys want to go check that out, that video and the rest of it, we were at the 36-minute mark. Guys, I hit pause. I didn't even realize this. And it stopped exactly at 36 minutes. No seconds. Here you go. Svetlana, I'm very sorry that you actually have to go through this. That's disgusting. Just block people. Hey, Nate, is there any biblical comment on the appropriate age of marriage? Not really. The Bible doesn't really tell you when you should get married. Nate, if you want to break that down further, I can comment on it. But the question is way too broad for me to get into details as to how I would approach that question. So. It's nice when he gives us historical context. Hey, look at that. It is. Okay, so you recommended us to watch this video. You didn't really.
Yeah,
but,
I did.
Well, you didn't say go watch it. I was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I don't. Most of it is just not really that important. It was just like first bit, really.
Well, it's very important to me and the Christians. He's making an argument, and
no,
so,
I just
yes,
to show
I
you
get what you're saying. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Okay.
I don't really know what to say about it. Like the last comment was kind of a bit insane, to be honest. But I mean, there's like an alright criticism in there. But like Wood's response to it is a bit weird. So like he says something like, which I think is kind of ironic because people use the same sort of line in abortion conversations. That bit where he was like, the birth control didn't work. And he made that like joke about like a fortress being like stormed or something, right? And that's like funny, but I don't know. Like if his intention was to not like get pregnant again, so I guess like the I don't know, the most obvious way to solve this issue is to just like not put yourself in that situation, right?
Not have sex?
Um, yeah, I guess, right? And so
Would you,
especially since like especially since
would
he
whoa,
decided to
hang,
just
hang on, bro.
what do you mean?
You
What
like seriously wouldn't have sex with your wife?
what what? What the okay, so I'm not, like obviously not normally do what you're doing, but like in the context of him talking about like his kid having like a non-zero, actually I can't even say it's non-zero, it's like 50% or something.
It's not even because so it's only
It's more like
50% if it's a male.
25%, right? Yeah, it's like
It,
50 or
well,
50.
it's
Yeah.
you really don't know. What if you end up having 7 daughters? Like,
Well,
right?
no,
Like,
but he knows it's 50 because like he's been told. Like he's
no,
been
it's
told by a
50
lot.
if it's a boy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
Yeah.
like 25, right? Um
No, I don't
so
think
he
that's how it works because
what?
it's not
So
25%. How's it
there's a half
25%?
wait. So there's a half roll for it to be a boy or a girl, and then if it's a
Correct.
boy, then it's a half roll for it to have that disease. Like for him anyway.
I don't think that's how it works. It's because it's still 50%. I don't think it gets any less, is what I'm trying to say. Because look, if it's a girl, it's 0%.
Yeah.
But if it's a boy, it's 50%. But you don't know what it is, right? Like you have no guarantees.
Well, I just think I mean we're arguing about like maths now, but like I
Look,
feel
no,
like
what I'm
it's just
saying, you're right in the ethical approach. By the way, you're very right. And I think if somebody had approached him, and David would be aware of this because he studied philosophy. If you know that your child if you know your child will have a 50% chance of having a disease, is it ethical to have children? Is a solid ethical question.
but this is why I don't get it because like some like the comments that he's receiving, like if you charitably interpret them, like some of them are probably okay, right? But it's just the way that the people are telling them is actually nuts. Like people on the internet could just say
So
whatever.
how much of it do you think it's just the internet?
Uh,
Like the problem is the internet.
well, I'm not gonna sit here like criticizing like the state of the internet. I'm just gonna like criticize the state of the people who are on it, right?
Okay, so
Um,
here's what I think. I think people are just jacked up. Okay, and it's not that I'm saying this out of nowhere. By the way, I've done some reading on this, but anonymity, for some reason, pushes them to a level where they just act this nonsense out. I actually think it's actually a pretty decent way of exposing how messed up our society is, but we have this appearance that everybody's very civil. Am I making sense there?
uh,
So I'll give you this. I'll give it this way. So if I took a poll, like we had 100 people in the room, right, and I was like, how many of you guys think what the Nazis did was right? I don't think a lot of the people in that room would say, I'm okay with that. I would say probably all of them would say not. If we separated all those people and did it purely anonymous, without them even seeing each other
oh, okay,
afterwards,
okay. That's
we'd get a lot more people saying yes because a lot of them do think that there was nothing wrong with it. Like what I'm saying is like, I know we've gotten over social issues, like that we see as like evils, slavery, genocide, X, Y, and Z. I still think there's people out there that are like, what the heck's wrong with owning a slave? Or whatever. Like, I know this because people have made comments to me. And I've been like, dude, you are one messed up person. But that's the reason I'm saying it. I think the internet's anonymity brings this to the surface.
Yeah.
It really does. So I would agree with you. But like,
no, I just found it really funny because when we're in like abortion conversations, right? Specifically that, and then somebody from somebody who's advocating for like people to have abortions, right, if they want to, will say something like like I don't want to say it's not their fault, but they'd say something like, this person didn't really actually want to have a child. They used birth control and all the appropriate things and it didn't work. And then when they use something like that, they're usually like either laughed at or mocked for saying something like kind of silly, because like when you're engaging in like intercourse and all that, like there isn't like a, it's like the chance of you still being pregnant after all that is
correct,
like
it's still there.
a number above zero, right? So like you can't, like, people will say that that's not really a good excuse to have an abortion, but then David Wood can say something like, I had this like fairly large chance of having a child with this genetic disease that I didn't even want. Like I didn't want to. We like he literally says himself, we weren't planning to get pregnant, but they just did it anyway.
Correct.
So I'm surprised he can get away with saying something like that.
Again, so there's two conversations here, right? One is it ethical to have children that let's just start with like the obvious. Is it ethical to have children that you know for sure will have some kind of a genetic disease? That's one question. I'm not saying that's an easy one to answer, by the way. I'm not even sure what the answer to that is. But another one would be, is it okay having a children you know that has a chance of having a genetic disease? Right? But I think there's another component here where he says, well, I know there's a chance, and I know if we end up having a child that has that disease, we will love and care and nurture for this child to the best of our abilities, completely sacrificially. Okay? So his reaction isn't, hey, we know that this could have this disease, and if they do have the disease, we're going to get rid of the kid, or we're going to do X, we're going to give it for adoption, we're going to throw it away, whatever, right? His response is actually, we're going to take responsibility and care and love and cherish and all of that stuff, which is very different than somebody saying, well, I took all the prevention methods of getting pregnant and having a kid, but I ended up getting pregnant anyways, and what I want to do is have an abortion. I think there's a big difference there.
Yeah, I get it. That's why I didn't really like talk about the ethics of it. Really, it's just what he said and like the follow on from that.
Yeah, and
like
I don't know how much of that is his just personality, like the way David goes out. That'd be a nice comment to make there.
I don't know.
By the way, you came on here and our numbers spiked. Just saying.
Is it? It's a what? I'm not looking.
It was up to like 20, and then we're at 16, which is fine. But just saying that Jerome is loved by the people. Yeah, that's the truth. I think people just generally like seeing folks talking to one another, and
indeed,
yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah,
okay, Nate, I want to address. Okay, let's talk about this. Nate's talking about like, when's the appropriate age for marriage? Jerome, we know you're like a younger dude, much younger. You don't have the gray in your beard. You can't authoritatively pull off a Gandalf.
You can't either, really,
dude. Wait.
Yeah, wait, exactly.
Just wait. Give me 3 months. No. I'm probably anywhere 15 to I don't think I'm 20 years older than you. Whatever. More than 15 years older than you, I think.
Yeah.
Because we don't know your real age. When's the right age to get married? I got married when I was 27 years old. Okay. After being dating and being engaged for 6 months, we got married. So I met my wife when I was around 25. We started talking, and then engaged, married. You're not there yet in regards to age. I'm not very sure. This question is very interesting, right? When's the right age to get married? For my immediate, like, sarcastic response is, some people, it's never the right age to ever get married. Okay, like, some people should never get married, in my opinion.
Wow. Okay.
I'm not one of those people that thinks everybody needs to get married, and I think that's biblical.
But hold on. Why am I getting accused of sounding like Sargon? That's crazy. Every British person sounds the same, apparently.
Sargon of Akkad. Yeah, it's that weird accent they have. It's the pomp and the poshness of it. I'm just messing. Dude, you should, like, just practice your Cockney accent and just be on here, like, just
No, not even.
sounding hood. It's okay. I wish I had your accent, bro. If I had your accent, I'd just, like, make money off of it.
By doing what?
Like narrating.
Hmm.
Dude, you can, like, record audiobooks, by the way. You can make
Hmm.
money recording, doing audio voiceovers.
It would only work in the US though, because you don't seem
No. It's funny. My wife and I were watching a video the other day, and it was a British guy who was teaching British enunciation. So he was teaching English to foreigners, but he was teaching how to enunciate certain words, specifically of the British sort.
Yeah.
And I was telling my wife, I was like, man, you should just, because she teaches English, and I was like, just make a YouTube channel, like just a faceless YouTube channel teaching people English, because she's a really good teacher. And she was like, nah, I'm not really interested. Who knows?
Okay.
She makes a YouTube channel, it blows up, and then but she doesn't want to do it. So Nate's talking about when's the right age. Nate, your question so one of the questions is a biological thing, basically using biblical arguments, how marriage is to a 9-year-old wrong. Yeah, dude, marriage to a 9-year-old is wrong. What's wrong with you? That child is not physically developed. You go through physical, by the way, and just getting your period is not enough. Like, your bones need to develop as a woman, your hips need to develop. There's a lot more development that happens beyond, oh, look, they got the period. Now there could be all sorts of outliers into the way that happens. I would, by the way, Inspiring Philosophy has done a number of conversations on this, his accusations within Islam, and then also responding to people accusing Christians from the biblical perspective, and then him looking at data and what they were saying in regards to marriage age and all that stuff.
I thought you were going to reference that one debate that he had.
Yeah, he had a debate with that one guy. I forget his name.
I think those debates in specific, like those specific debates, are kind of unwatchable in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah,
and you need to be a really good moderator, and then when it comes to, like, decorum, professional decorum, it's very important.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And some of these debates don't have that. It just kind of turns into a shouting kind of thing, and I have a hard time with that.
That's why, hey, the channel that it was on is Modern Day Debate, and I hate that channel a lot.
A lot of people like that channel.
I really dislike it. Like, I think I've watched it about twice in the past 2 years, and it's only because I was sent links by 2 people that I know. So
yeah, Nate, I don't know where your people are answering you. Where you're coming at with this, where you're going with this. I would say maturity matters, physical maturity matters, obviously. And then I would also say emotional and intellectual maturity matters as well. Hey, I'm going to bring in Sean because he's called in. Let's go atheists.
Hello.
What's up, Sean?
Well, here we go.
You don't love me, Jeremy. Jerome.
What? Why'd you pronounce my name?
Called you Jeremy.
What is happening, man?
Jeremy's like,
Is there a Y at the end of my name that I didn't see until now?
no. Jerome,
No, you're fine,
yesterday, Truth Unites, which is, do you know this guy? Truth Unites. Do you know the channel?
No, I do not.
I'll show you something here.
Also, why are people talking about my relationship status in chat, man? Like, allow me. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is happening?
The only reason I mentioned your age and stuff was, it really depends. Like when I was 22, I thought I was ready to get married, and I think I was. Now there was a lot of maturing to do, but I have no issue saying there's absolutely nothing wrong with maturing in marriage with your spouse. Like I haven't bought into this idea that you gotta like mature up to like the optimal level. You gotta level up, to use a video game language for Jerome there. You gotta level up to like max level, and then you can get married to someone else who's leveled up to their max level. Right? Like I don't believe that. I think you can get married and level up together. And as a matter of fact, that's the reality of what happens regardless of what age you get married at. It might even be argued that it's a better thing for you to mature together rather than develop your characters in all these like different ways, which will end up causing more conflict in your marriage because you're more set in your ways. So whatever. That's the comments I would say. If you're ready to get married and people around you, I would say if people around you think you're ready for marriage, that's a very good sign. So ask those around you. If you're like, hey, mom, dad, I want to get married, and they laugh at you, you're probably not ready to get married.
But you know, atheists don't believe in marriage anymore. I'd say marriage is not going to be as popular in the future. Well, actually, no, the Chinese do it a lot, so I can be wrong.
What do you mean atheists don't believe in marriage?
Well, like, they don't think that it's that important.
Don't believe it exists or something, you know?
Yeah, maybe so.
So
Sean, the downfall of our society will be the fault of atheists.
I mean, like,
No, the Chinese are doing fine.
We just tend to do it less. We just tend to like not actually get married.
Correct.
Right?
So here's Truth Unites. This is he's a great dude. But check this out, Jerome. Check this video. Check his latest video out. I watched this yesterday. See that?
Okay, what is going on here?
Does Jerome undermine apostolic succession?
Well, I mean, I know what he's talking
about. So he's talking about Saint Jerome.
Yeah.
You guys, if you're interested in this video, and if you're interested in the conversation about apostolic succession, that's for like Orthodox, Catholics, Protestants in the chat. This is a really good video. So
yeah, I'll look at it.
Mr. Ortland, Gavin Ortland, by the way, who's got a PhD, he's a smart dude. Gavin,
Catholics don't know that.
Yeah, Gavin knows his stuff very, very well. And the purpose of this channel is essentially to bring into conversation Catholics and Protestants and stuff like that. And again, that's a recommendation for a video. I learned quite a bit from him and the videos he puts out. So
here, yeah, I have a question. Did God create the other gods?
You kept asking this yesterday.
Yeah, nobody answered it.
So yeah, let me answer it this way. So when I was talking about the Egyptian gods, I don't believe the Egyptian gods actually exist. What I was talking about is whatever God is doing to show that he is stronger than the Egyptian gods, it's because the people believe that these gods exist. And God is showing them in their own thinking that a couple of things are the case. Either he's stronger than any of the gods they worship, so they shouldn't worship those gods, or those gods don't exist. When you read the biblical narrative, in the beginning, I think it's very clear that none of these gods actually exist. But you also get regular references to the non-existence of these deities. So God didn't create any of these gods, right? The idea is more in The idea is more about the literature we're reading and how people are interpreting the literature that we're reading when it's happening to them.
But isn't it in the Ten Commandments, you shall not worship other gods or something? It's very important, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
Why is it so important if they're not true? Why would God care so much if they're not true?
Because idolatry is wrong.
Sorry,
Oh,
what's
because he
this
doesn't
about?
want them to be atheists, is that it? Or like not believe in
No,
them or something?
idolatry and atheism are completely different things.
Wait, so it's worse to be an idolater than an atheist in God's view?
Both are as bad.
Why does he not mention not believing in God in the ten
Because
commandments?
atheists are relatively new to the world.
Cool.
No,
What's
seriously,
Evolution,
like,
man.
atheists have like
Where's this come
not
from?
really existed.
There was atheists, but very few back
When?
in the day. Well, in the
Like
Stone Age, and
1825.
then like no, there's mentions of atheism in India. I heard long time ago.
No, there's non-theistic religions. I'm not sure whether there are atheistic religions. Those are
No,
completely
I'm not
different
talking about
things.
religion. I'm talking about atheists. Like there was written
I'd have to
stuff
look at the
talking about.
literature. Look, I would just say a vast majority, I'd say over 98% of the world and historically, so globally and historically, well, globally maybe not today, but historically speaking, people have been religious. By the way, I would argue people are still religious.
No, but in the
Even the
Stone Age
atheists.
time, they probably weren't like they probably mourned their dead and did some rituals, and
Still
they taught
religious.
the. But you saying that those people believed in God or something, or
Some
other
of them
gods?
did. Some of them, yeah. I mean, primitive religion is there. Some people believed in the existence of one God. Some people believed in kind of the existence of this deity that brought into existence all the things. And then, but typically people believed in, typically people believed that elements. So they were very animistic, right? They worshipped the planet and animals and various things of that sort. Nate, what's going on, man? Welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, sorry, I've been kind of stirring the pot there in the chat a little bit.
No, that's okay. It's always easier when people call in because then we can actually get a sense of what they're saying and you know, word count and all that stuff. It's tough. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I guess what I was just trying to figure out, and I mean, obviously, like I am completely against child marriage, like make that very clear. But I'm honestly just trying to find any kind of biblical support that is against it, and I'm just having trouble with that, and so that's what I'm checking in on.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because in the ancient world, and I don't know the literature that well, and some people do, but you could have what would be considered child marriage in the ancient world, where you got like a 7-year-old being like arranged in marriage to another 7-year-old or whatever like that. Families get to decide that, but nothing really happens within the ancient context until that man is ready to take care of a family, and that was accompanied with him building a house, being able to work, and X, Y, and Z. So it would be weird. Now, we're talking the same age sort of kids. In regards to, say, like a 7-year-old being arranged to, say, a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 27-year-old, those conversations change. Again, somebody's got to look at the literature, and some folks have very clearly suggested that even in those, like we have writings where not until this kid is fully developed physically can they be given in marriage. And I'm not an expert on this subject. I just you're not going to get a biblical case for this, partly because it was maybe not an issue for them to actually deal with it like that. What we could get, actually, it's in Ecclesiastes, right? So in Ecclesiastes, not Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs or Song of Solomon, where the woman says to the daughters of Jerusalem, "Do not arise love before its time." Do you remember this passage? How familiar are you with the Bible?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think I did when I was just kind of did my quick like Google search trying to find some of this. I think I did kind of come across it, but again, it's just like, well, who decides that? Like, what does physically mature mean? Can a 11-year-old be physically mature? I don't,
No, an 11-year-old's body is not physically developed enough to really carry children.
Every 11-year-old?
No, that's not but that's like saying, is every adult ready for marriage?
No.
Like every
Right.
21-year-old.
Correct. Right.
Like even in our
Right.
context, right? We came up with a law. Whatever. Let's not talk about marriage. Let's give another example because I think it's easier. We've come up with a law that says when you're 18, you can vote. Is every 18-year-old mentally capable of making decisions that are going to potentially change the lives of everybody else?
No.
Yeah, like why is an 18-year-old kid who's never paid taxes in his life have the same amount of vote and authority as a 55-year-old millionaire who's paying millions in taxes?
Yeah, well, I think we just have to draw the line somewhere, right? I mean, we have to
Correct.
put a line in the sand. Yep.
Yeah,
And
and,
so-
and that's
and
what I'm
so-
saying.
and
It's
so
like
where
when
is
you
that?
say, is it because physical bodies are different. It could be someone 17 years old and they're still physically not developed enough to carry a child.
Right. But for the voting thing, some 18-year-olds are able to vote intellectually, right? And wisely.
They're able to
right?
go to the military.
Maybe.
And so so there are some 18-year-olds that can vote wisely. And there are some 11-year-olds that can physically give birth.
Yeah, I'm not very convinced of that. Again, this is not like my expertise. I don't know the medical research on it. A lot of my comments are going to be anecdotal and stuff, and I just don't want to say something that's incorrect. But I would say, whenever we have situations like this, when it comes to ethics or whatever like that, it's better to move in on the side of caution rather than do something that is potentially like extremely harmful to an individual. Right? So the conversations that could be had and maybe should be had is, say you got contemporaries like an 11-year-old being arranged in marriage with another 11-year-old, but that marriage doesn't get finalized or consummated till they're whatever, older. Say 15, 16, 18, whatever it may be. As opposed to an older gentleman being attracted to a younger girl. And why the opposite of that is not really seen in society very much. That's a question to ponder and think about. Then I would also ask questions as to why the heck is this 25-year-old guy attracted to 11-year-old in the first place? These are legitimate questions to ask when we come across conversations like this.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of see it as it has evolved, right? I mean, today I think we're uneasy with a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old and probably even a 15-year-old, but just 100, 200 years ago, not as
Correct.
uneasy, right? And who knows what that was 2,000 years ago.
Well, no, we know. It's not that who knows. We know what it was. It's actually
was it?
not very different than what it was 200 years ago.
Oh, really? 13?
Are you trying to defend Mohammed or something, or pedophilia in some cases?
Not at all. Not at all. Like I am on your guys' side as that. I'm against it just as much as you guys are. I'm honestly, I don't see anything that says, why do we shouldn't feel uneasy when a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old gets married.
Yeah, what I would
right?
say is that, it's interesting that you brought up the Bible. I mean, there's things that are not necessarily in the Bible that we can rationally conclude as to being, we got to be careful with or wrong about or like not do. Like God has given us reason and rationality to process information. Correct? Like you would agree with
Right.
that.
Right. And a lot of people, potentially the majority of people, were reasonable and rational 200 years ago when they said 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds can get married.
But I think we would agree that there's a big difference between, say, I'm not sure about a 13-year-old, but let's say a 14, 15-year-old and an 11-year-old. There's a humongous difference.
For the most part, yep, I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'll tell you this. My son plays soccer. He's 9. He plays soccer a year above his age level, right? So he's playing against 10-year-olds. When we line him up to play against 11-year-olds, the difference, the physicality is insanely different. That's 2 years, year and a half, maybe, but it's still very, very different. And so again, there's maybe not much of a difference between a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, but an 11-year-old, humongously different from a 14, 15-year-old. So based on that, like we can observe biological phenomena happening and make decisions. And what I want to argue for, and again, I'm not very read up on the literature. I'm going off of stuff I've heard. What I would argue for, even in the ancient world, they didn't just go, sure, here's a 32-year-old and an 11-year-old. They can just go off. There was a maturation process and a preparation process, both in regards to what it would mean for this person being given in marriage to mature to be a mother and somebody who cares for her own household, and biological. And I'd argue that folks weren't getting married till they were beyond that. And that's probably putting them in 14, 15, 16-year-old range. I mean, even look at Jewish culture. If you want to look at the Bible, when does somebody have their bar mitzvah? Or I forget what the name is for the female, bat mitzvah, I think. It's not 11, it's not 9, right? It's about 13 years old.
Yeah, and that is that. Please let me know. That means, I guess that's kind of like the coming of age
Correct.
ceremony, sort of, right?
Mhm.
And I would kind of think, would that mean, years and years ago that bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah was okay. You're now an adult, quote, an adult, and now can marry or not? Or do you know?
It seems like that's been the case.
Yeah, and we're thinking like 13 or something like that. I don't know either.
But so in Orthodox Jewish homes, bat mitzvahs are 13 years old.
Okay, but you're
Sorry, for boys it's 13, for girls it's 12.
okay. So yeah, and I think we're all probably on the same page as far as we're not super comfortable with 13 and 12-year-olds getting married.
Correct. It's like, and as we should not be comfortable with that. But along that, my additional comments would be, how mature are the people when it comes to their intellect? How mature are the people when it comes to the care of others, like caring for a child and X, Y, and Z, right? Like those things all matter for this conversation.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think there was probably a lot more of the older girls within a household caring for their younger sisters or younger siblings
Correct.
happening. And so you probably did have, 10, 11, 12-year-old girls that were had years under their belt of taking care of infants and small kids. And so they probably do have some skills as far as taking care of and raising children, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Nate,
there wouldn't be a
sorry,
question in my mind. Yeah, go ahead.
are you Christian, Nate?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Are you Christian, Nate?
No.
An atheist?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're probably thinking about like Christians are more open-minded to having marriages with older men, and because that's what the Mormons did there, or the polygamy cults there. So there must be something in the Bible that mentions you're allowed to marry a young girl or something.
No,
Well,
I'm
it's
not.
definitely the case in Islam anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not placing any kind of judgment on Christians as far as that goes at all. It does seem like they're, I don't know what the statistics are. I think kind of evangelical Christians and Mormons tend to marry a little bit younger, but I don't know about that for sure.
Well, there
Yeah,
was a cult.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Okay, so guys, you got to be careful and be fair whenever we're comparing religious groups. And I would say even like location wise, geographically, like where they are in a certain country and what's allowed under the laws of that country and stuff. But like, oh, there's even amongst Mormons, like, oh, there's an offshoot of a Mormon kind of sect that has polygamy, where the official Latter-day Saints church doesn't believe in polygamy, right? This is a doctrinal position where the official Utah church disagrees with and doesn't allow anybody to have more than one wife. Whether people practice it or not, whatever they may be doing, then that becomes a secondary conversation within that. Just to be fair to what we're talking about here.
Why?
Right? I wouldn't be surprised. By the way, I wouldn't be surprised that religious people get married more and younger. That would not surprise me at all. I also wouldn't be surprised that religious people remain more monogamous, and maybe even could be argued have healthier marriages.
I wanna find out why he asked that question in the first place. Like I thought you were like a Christian, right? And you were looking for like biblical responses to this. Because when people ask questions like this, they tend to ask a question like this, like after they've had a conversation with somebody who disagrees with them, about like morality or something. It's like, did you just think of that question, or has someone like prompted you to think of that?
Yeah,
The whole
I don't
question
think.
of whether people should get married or not.
Yeah, yeah. No, I appreciate that for clarifying. Yeah, it's just I guess just the other day I was kind of thinking about, I think all of us here in this little room are against, Muhammad's marriage to a 9-year-old. Kind of thought in my head, well, wait a second, is there anything biblically that says, Christians should be against that? And so that's
Oh,
just kind
okay.
of what
That's
that's
fair
all
enough.
that is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. You're muted, Otto.
Sorry, yeah, you got disconnected there, so I didn't hear you. What you said? You said Muhammad's. We're all against Muhammad, and I didn't hear anything else.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. See if I get my thought back. We're all against, Muhammad's marriage to a 9-year-old. We're all on the same page there.
By
And
the
I
way,
just kind of got
potentially
my
6-year-old, not
sure.
9-year-old is
Um,
where it's
the
consummated.
consummate. That's right. And so it just kind of got the wheels turning in my head, thinking, well, what's the how could a Christian turn to the Bible and say, see, it says right here in the Bible, this is why we're against that. It just got those wheels turning, and I'm not saying there necessarily is an answer. I was just kind of curious, and you guys are knowledgeable about it, so that's why I thought I'd ask.
Cool.
Yeah, I think, like I said in the comments, you would have to think about it. If somebody states something, right? If somebody states something, there's usually something assumed, right? And then someone states something that's new, introduced as new. So, like, something that people normally say, right? Christ didn't talk against homosexuality, right? But why didn't Christ talk against it? He was talking in a Jewish context, right? Where this stuff was already laid out. So he didn't need to come and say redundant stuff. So, like in the case of what age, can someone marry a 9-year-old? For Muhammad to be saying this, right? And even in the Quran, it shows that he had two people that kind of, didn't put a strong push against it, but kind of seemed like this is unusual, gave precedence to this being unusual, right? So you think, okay, this isn't the norm. So people weren't doing this at that, that youth, that age, right? 9 years old. I do understand that doesn't say what age then, but I think again, and Arthur, I think you mentioned this. We fall back on biology and we look at social dynamics. We see what is the normal thing that people do, because it's observable even today. And it's why when I mentioned in the chat that, what is it, that yeah, the age of maturity seems to have been pushed back or delayed over the last 150 years or so, and now it's heading back. So people are becoming mature at younger ages. That's why people started looking into that to see, wait a second, people are getting married older, right? And it seems natural, right? We can talk about a whole lot of stress and stuff that plays into it, but still, even if you reduce that on a global stage, people seem to be getting married older, right? And even getting involved older, right? Because we're not just talking about people with a sexual ethic that aligns with Christianity or some religions. So we see that, yes, people were getting people were interacting, let's just say that, interacting at a younger age than we see today, right? But it wasn't that young, definitely wasn't that young. And I'm sure that
it couldn't be until they had been considered to be adults. Like that is the most kind of rational sort of way when you think about it. It's like, given all the evidence we have, we're looking at the very minimum, I would say, in the ancient world. People are getting married at 13, 14 years old.
Some were getting married at 900, 800 years old.
Yeah, that's a completely different conversation, dude. Like, they weren't. Nobody got married at that age, but they lived up to that age. Okay.
And sorry, so I mean, I think, yeah, the 9-year-old, that's an extreme example, but I mean, I think we've touched this a few times. Like, maybe ancient years, it was, that 12, 13, 14-ish range. We are, we would be uncomfortable with that now, but
yeah, because 14-year-olds are stupid now. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, okay, so look, I have friends in Armenia who are 18, 19 years old and married. How many friends do you have in America that 18, 19 are mature enough to get married? Right?
But I'm not uncomfortable with it to the same extent.
Yeah, so let's put the comfort side to the side a little bit, right? Because there could be many things that we're uncomfortable with, but it's not necessarily an issue of like right or wrong. What I'm saying is that it may be in the ancient world. So I'm going to present maybe a couple of different possibilities. Maybe in the ancient world, because some folks argue that people didn't live as long, they got married earlier.
Yep.
Now, that's a possibility. I'm not convinced by that, but that might be a possibility. It could also be that younger men were prone to die because the younger men were prone to die like earlier, because it would be the young people who would go to war. And to keep culture and society kind of functioning, you will want these people, if they're like going to go off to war and die at 17, you'd want them to have a kid or something like that before that happens. So that's another thing that's been suggested.
So the Bible doesn't say anything about marrying young or something like that, advising people to get married young or anything like that. Not like Muhammad.
I mean,
there's only one place where it does.
What's the passage?
There's only one place where it does. I think it's in 2 Timothy or in Titus, right, where Paul is talking about already widowed women getting married again, right? And that's just like the younger, right?
Yeah, but that's someone who's been married and whose spouse has died.
Yeah,
right. The other one I can think about is in Corinthians 7, 1 Corinthians 7, where Paul says, hey, if you can't control yourself and you're going to fall into temptation, find yourself a spouse. But again, there's no age given there. There's no rule. There's no command like, hey, when you're 15, you can get married now. You don't really see that.
You're not gonna find ages in this sort of discussion. They don't really think about it like that. So I don't know what
Well-
you're looking for, to be honest.
Polygamy is allowed, and a lot of religious people married young wives with many. One man had many wives, and a lot of them were young. Some of them in America, especially
But
the
he was
Mormons.
He was only talking about child marriage, though, so it's not really that important.
Yeah, like if you again, the polygamy conversation is a completely different sort of conversation. I made videos on that.
Well, are you
And I've
from
commented on it.
are you from Northern Ireland or the Republic?
Republic.
Okay.
The
So hang on.
Republic.
This is I want.
I
This is
find
cool.
it
This is cool.
Dark
Hang on.
side.
I find it really funny.
The good
that
side or the dark side?
Dude, my
Dark
channel's the bomb. I just want to say that. Okay, Apologia Center is where all the British gather. So Jerome, you're in England. Sean, you're in the Republic of Ireland. Excellence, where are you?
I'm in England as well.
Yeah, I thought so.
I'm just saying, dude.
Exactly. Because you know what it is, we're
you
just
got
more
invaded,
inclined
that's
to that intellectual stuff. Early in the morning, late at night, intellectual. You know.
Yeah. When I look at it's funny because when I look at the analytics, I'm like, oh, dude, like there's a bunch of people from England and Canada that watch me. Why? Right? But then why not? Why not? I have a strange looking face and people enjoy that. Nate, where are you from, man?
I'm U.S. I'm Pacific Northwest.
Okay. Yeah. Boring.
Yeah.
Nah,
If you don't
Nate's
have an accent, bro,
Nate's
like
brought
it's
a lot of stuff.
everybody's got an accent. But it's cool. I like the English folks. One of these days I'm gonna make my way to England, but I'm not gonna tell any of y'all. I'm just gonna post a picture from Anfield.
That's not fair. That's not fair. You can't come. Come on. You can't come to someone's house and not tell them.
Ooh, I like that. You know what? So I know for sure Jerome's background is Ethiopian and Jamaican. So if I come to England, Jerome owes me Ethiopian and Jamaican food.
What? Okay.
They're just, hey, bro, there's
That's
something called
exotic.
hospitality.
That's how it works.
Come on,
Ethiopian
Jerome. If you
and
came here,
Jamaican.
Jerome, I'd make Armenian food for you, dude.
Okay.
So I'm just saying. Excellent. What's your background?
Oh no, it's just Nigerian. Just Nigerian.
Nigerian. So I want some Nigerian food.
Are you
Wait,
from
wait, wait.
London, by the way? You sound like you're from London.
Not at the moment, but yeah, I grew up there.
Oh, fair enough.
Beckham, you know.
Hmm.
But Arthur, you gotta bring some Armenian food with you. We don't.
Dude,
have
I
a
show
lot
up there,
that
bro.
here.
I show up there. We'll go kill a cow. I'll marinate the meat. We'll eat it together. I'll make it right there.
That sounds illegal. But
Killing a cow. You guys
No,
don't
no,
eat
no, no.
hamburgers? What's wrong?
Yeah, we
Just-
do, and
I feel like-
we have.
Wait, have you
farms where we
slaughtered a
can
cow
do
before, Arthur? You sound like you have.
I have not. I've slaughtered chickens, but I haven't slaughtered bigger animals than that. But wouldn't mind it. I had a weirdly traumatic experience when I was a kid with the slaughter of a lamb. So I was like 10 years old when this happened. But they killed 2 sheep in front of me, 2 lamb in front of me. And dude, like they have the most innocent looks. Like and for some reason nobody cared that I was standing there and looking at them just like slitting the throat of these animals. And they had it hanging up upside down and blood draining and stuff. And I remember just locking eyes with the sheep that was dying. Just going, man,
Yeah, lamb is quite weird. I think it's because it tastes better when they're young,
correct.
and
Yes.
it's Jesus related as well, religion related as well.
Yeah, but I was 10. Like I was just looking at like the thing about them is that they have a certain look. The way I would like to put it is like they have this stupid look to them, but it's like stupid / innocent look, and it's very strange. But yeah, I wouldn't mind. I would assume it would be. I would assume it'd be a very difficult work slaughtering a cow.
They say if everybody slaughtered their own animals, there'd be much more vegans, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, well, people used to do that, and they weren't that much vegan. Here's what I'll tell you, Sean, is in the ancient world, people actually didn't eat as much meat as we do. That's not because of any of that stuff. It's because the animals actually cost a lot more money. So to kill your animal for a feast would have meant a very, very big deal that you were doing that. Because imagine if a home has like 2 cows and they got to kill one of them. So people weren't as much. Once we start kind of mass producing stuff, and even now in the world, you know, when I was in Armenia, my cousin had a sheep, and he had 2 of them actually, and then he told me, well, one of them he was going to kill at the end of the year, which he did, and he sold the other one and bought some other stuff. But it was a big deal for him to get rid of that animal. It costs money. It takes years.
Yeah.
And people didn't eat as much. And globally, even today, people don't eat as much as we do in the West.
Yeah.
Folks aren't having 3 meals a day and stuff.
Plus, you got to think about the variety of meat as well, compared to the variety of vegetation. So
Correct.
if there's more vegetable, and also the kind of things that people were eating back then, today we'll look at that and be like, nah, I don't understand. Like, is it 3rd century? I think it's 1st century Roman, right? In Britain, because we had just conquered Britain, eating pig's brain. But you didn't have a lot of other meat, but still eating pig's brain. And we'd look at that and be like, nah, man, but that was a delicacy.
Dude, have you guys had cow brain?
No.
I've had
I will
tongue.
try that.
Oh,
Cow tongue is nice. Cow tongue is nice.
cow tongue's phenomenal. So it's a really good piece of meat. But cow brain, just saying, dude. If you know someone who cooks it well, it's phenomenal. It kind of cooks like a patty, so you can like eat it like in a sandwich, or you can eat it in a I don't know the British terminology here. I don't know whether you guys call it a patty or not, but
burger or patty,
yeah. You can put it in a sandwich or in a burger, and it's phenomenal. My mom used to make it growing up. My mom used to make it all the time, but she was very selective over like it had to be like in really good shape because whatever, you get sick from it or something. But it's phenomenal.
I'll try it. Just trick me into it. Don't tell me what it is. That's it.
Yeah, you won't even know. You really wouldn't. Oh wow, how many Brits are in this room? Look at that.
Yeah, you got invaded.
2. There's only 2.
There's
Well, you
there's
don't
2, and then Sean's the rebellious kind. I'm with the
Join
Irish,
the
bro. I
rebellion.
love the Irish. The Irish are the Armenians of those islands. Is the way I
Yeah.
see it.
Man, completely skipping over the Isle of Wight and that. Okay.
Sorry, what say that?
I was talking about like the Isle of Wight and some of the smaller islands that used to have their own kind of population.
Correct. What does he say? But Arthur, have you had haggis? What is that?
Haggis.
Haggis.
No
What is
Scots here. There are no Scots here.
Yeah.
Pig not pigs.
Is
sorry,
that
sheep
that's a
intestines.
Scottish food?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What is it? Tell me.
Sheep intestines.
Oh.
Inside. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's inside of sheep skin, but it just doesn't. I don't know what it tastes like, to be honest, but I know that from being younger, I just heard about it and I was like, I don't want to try it. But maybe now that I'm older, I'm thinking about it. Maybe it'll actually be nice.
Well,
I don't know though.
in some places in the country, in the world, bull testes are a delicacy as well. Just saying. Middle Easterners eat that stuff. Putting that out.
Yeah,
there.
what's that story? The Muslims have to slaughter all their animals alive in their throat, facing Mecca. Is that it?
I have
That-
no idea. I've never been a part of a
Halal.
Muslim
It's
animal
halal.
slaughter party.
No, yeah, it's a bit mad. So they can't stun them before.
But they can't stone them. They gotta like
They can't stun them. I mean, with electricity. They have to
stun.
cut them alive. Yeah, they have to cut their throat alive, facing Mecca. That's in their religion. So they can't do it the modern way by stunning them first and then cutting them.
Interesting.
Ireland has to send live cattle to Middle Eastern countries because they can't have them killed
Got
the
it.
Western way, because they have to do it their religious way. So it's very uncomfortable for the animals.
Hmm.
I think Jews do that too.
Probably, yeah.
So
That makes sense. Nate said, thanks guys for the talk. Appreciate it. Hey, thanks, Nate. Appreciate it, man. You got some challenging questions coming up.
I find it really, really weird that that Nate came in to talk about like child marriage, and now we're here talking about this.
Well, you keep saying that, but you know how it rolls, like how this thing works.
I guess so.
Like it's just like the flavor of Apologia Center. You know, my problem with a lot of YouTube channels, Jerome, is that like it's constant and always bickering and arguing with one another. And I mean that like within the Christian space as well, like the apologetics channels, but even the non-apol. But people never like befriend each other beyond that, like the sort of stuff we're talking about, right?
I mean, there's an obvious reason for that, but
what's tell me?
Yeah,
well,
I mean,
I think it's just very obvious. Like the I mean, like the apologetics ones are just I don't know. From what I see, they're just like a response video, like spinners, where they look at videos and then they respond to them, and that's it. Like they stream it and then they record the response, or they make their own videos, and that's it. And like the atheists are doing the same. The atheists sometimes have call-in shows, but like their call-in shows are like kind of bad. Because they're not formatted in like a good way, in my opinion. Yours is just like relatively open, right? You can just talk about whatever. So that's kind of why you get something like this, where we just talk about whatever. But like most other channels just have their content like pointed in one direction, you know. So
well, that's because we're probably too small. I mean, if you're big, you have to do
yeah, that does help,
loads
right?
of one subject or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like
that's
this,
one thing
like
I
around.
appreciate.
The thing is that I'm also like this around the dinner table. Like I wouldn't mind sitting there and like 15 minutes going at it and like being argumentative and right, trying to make a point and stuff, and then in a really awesome way transitioning to talk about like why Liverpool's a better team than Arsenal. Because life is like that is in my view. Like I don't just, for me, is that people aren't robots. I'm not just inputting information and then they're just going to come up with like some kind of a correct response. There's a lot more to life, and the older I'm getting, guys, and again, I know around maybe how old Jerome is. I don't know the other two guys here, how old you guys are, but the older I'm getting, the more I realize just this stuff is as important. Maybe sometimes it's even more important in regards to these conversations, and they're connected.
Yeah. Can I suggest something? So you know how Jordan, yeah, you do know. That's how I actually found out, right? How Jordan Peterson has his Exodus series, his Bible study series, which at the moment, the more episodes they go through, the more it irritates me, like watching it. But how he has that. You just mentioned that you would like this around the dinner table. I think that could be something interesting that people would really engage with, because you bring a side to apologetics that most channels don't bring, where you focus on the apologetics, not the polemics, right? Not the how to, talk to somebody and have this structured way so that you can break down their walls so that they can see the truth, which is needed. Yeah, sure. But you also talk about apologetics for people to have a deeper understanding of it, right? Which besides Preston Perry, maybe he did a bit of that. He does a bit of that. Besides him, I haven't seen anyone else do, and you do that a lot, and I think that's great. So if you had like a series or something, or some videos where maybe you had guests around, and it is maybe around the dinner table or after a dinner, and you talked about stuff like this, open conversations, not open to the public to call in and stuff, people would really engage with that.
That's
he'll bring
interesting.
something to the apologetic scene that I think is very needed.
Yeah, I'd need a couple of. I need some cameramen. Not really. I mean, we can set up cameras, mics. It's not a bad idea, man. I'm gonna think about that.
Sounds
To be
decent.
fair, Pine Creek does that. I don't know any other Christian channel on YouTube does that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess you're maybe the only one.
The call-in aspect.
Yeah. Is there any other channels that do like you? Pine Creek kind of does the same with atheism.
I mean, God Logic does that, but his conversations are mostly with Muslims, and they're like a debate kind of format.
I watched his channel for a little bit after that one video. It's a bit of a mess in my view, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's a difficulty in like moderating something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, and like so, I'm a bit careful to just say, yeah, if I were doing that and I had 800 people in the chat, it wouldn't look like that. But then it's like I don't know what that would look like. I wouldn't want it to be like that. Like I don't know, maybe I'd just like be crazy on that block button. But some of it has to. I still think some of it has to do with age, man. Like if I was 22, it would be a very, very different sort of conversation. I'd be a lot more aggressive, a lot more black and white. And I can personally speak about myself. I know when I was that age, or whatever, say 25, things were a lot more black and white for me. And predominantly for me, that was out of my ignorance. Not that I didn't believe the right stuff and knew the right stuff. It just I probably held to certain positions in a tighter way that I no longer do. Like even within Christian like circles and conversations, I'm a lot more gracious to theological opinions that I disagree with.
It's like morality, it's subjective or something. What am I saying? I don't even know what that means.
Where's the connection there?
I have no idea what the connection was.
I was gonna say.
Well, you can interpret.
How do you do this, dude? I swear.
The Bible differently.
Okay, yeah. I can see the through line. I just think it's a big jump from
kind of
the
after you said
Bible
that, yeah.
interpreted differently to morality being subjective. But, yeah,
Well, again,
Yeah,
this is why I will explain to people regularly that there are primary beliefs in Christianity, and there are secondary beliefs, and beyond that. And so the primary stuff, I'm going to be as adamant and dogmatic about it that I can possibly be. But what I've realized about myself is the older I've gotten, the more I've read, the more friends I've made and interactions I've had with people who are intelligent, know doctrine well, know theology well, understand the whole kind of sphere, and they disagree with me, I'm a lot more gracious on the secondary and tertiary issues. Where I think when I was younger, those primary and secondary issues were very regularly confused. And that's come with age, that's come with acquiring more information and understanding. But also it's just come down with like I'm older and I don't have enough time and I'm more iterable. Yeah. So hello, Nati.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
How's it going, people?
Pretty good. Is your name Nati? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Nati.
Where are you from,
that's
Nati?
good. I'm in the US, but I'm originally from Africa, in Ethiopia. To be
Ethiopia.
exact.
What?
Ethiopians, man, my African brothers.
So why am I connected to everyone?
Ethiopians are the African brothers of the Armenians.
Oh yeah, yeah, we kind of have that connection, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, linguistically.
Yeah,
Nati,
I think.
does your name mean something?
I don't know. I mean, my parents told me it's from the Bible somewhere. I didn't ask like the exact place where it is, but they said it there, and I didn't even like bother to look at it. But it might mean something, you know. I don't know. I don't remember how they phrased that. It was when I was a kid, and I didn't really give it much thought. But
Okay. I'm gonna disagree.
yeah. I think our languages kind of similarity, and I think it's
You know, it was
derivative.
funny. I met an Ethiopian woman one time, and her name was Almas. And yeah, and I said, "Hey, your name in Armenian means diamond," and she said, "That's what it means in Ethiopian."
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah. It's pronounced Almaz.
Yeah, you guys
Almaz.
just emphasize the z more.
Yeah. It's very loose the way you
Yeah.
said it. You said Almaz, and I was like,
Yeah.
what?
It's more a s for us, not a z. But yeah.
Yeah, Almaz. It's diamond. It's the same. You know. I mean, most languages borrow words from others. Mostly, we don't notice it, but we borrow words from each.
Correct.
Yeah, I suppose I'm in English.
So welcome to the channel. It seems like, I don't know, do you regularly watch this channel or?
No, you just come on my YouTube timeline and just saw it, calling show, and I
Cool,
just
well, welcome.
heard a little bit of what you guys were talking, and I'm just like, well, why not join? And I suppose join the conversation.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, are you a Christian, or are you like?
Yeah, when I was like most Christians, when I was raised in a Christian family in Ethiopia. You know, the dominant Christian denomination is like Oriental Orthodoxy,
Mhm.
if I'm correct, and it has like in millions the followers. A lot of people follow that religion besides Islam.
Mhm.
The two of them have like most shares, like 50-50 almost, just 1% left. But not now, not currently. I don't. It's very. I don't like to put myself like in a group and say I'm with this group. You know, I will just. I'm kind of reserved, but you can take me as non-Christian.
But you,
Non-Christian.
but you believe in God? Are you like not sure whether God exists?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure because some people might say when I say I don't know, you're an atheist and you belong there, but I don't know. Atheists are too spicy for me. I'm not gonna lie.
You're
I like
agnostic.
that. I like that.
Agnostic.
Yeah,
You're
they're too
agnostic.
much. Yeah, they're too much away in I suppose they're too polarized. You know, they're
Yeah.
kind of definitive in saying, you know, there's nothing there. Like it's complete. They speak in conviction, and because uh, we don't know. We don't know. And I'll tell you what. Like you say you're atheist, and then after you die and in the afterlife, if there is a God, hey, you're effed. You know, simply. So you just kind of stay reserved, learn as much as possible, and you know, probably you can hold a judgment in the future, but not now. For me, at least.
Okay, the rest of you guys comment on that statement right there. That's interesting.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're agnostic, not non-theistic, and as you said, you're not atheistic. I find it interesting that I don't know if it's just a regional thing, but you said that you're not atheist because atheists are too spicy, and I was immediately like, someone that gets it, because over here you hear some people say, "Now I'm an atheist. I don't know if God is real," and it's like, well, you just said you're atheist, and so, like, You know, but so would I be right to say that you've thought about this a bit, right? Like you didn't come to where you are simply from going through life. You got to it through, you've had considerations.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
That's good. That's interesting. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, most people who go out of their belief or religion, I think it's a process. As long as it's like real genuine, you were a real genuine one, and it's gonna be tough. Everything's gonna be you're gonna be looking things in a different perspective. No more going on church Sundays, or in case of Islam, so going to mosque. Your relationship with your family. Oh, that's like the crazy hard part. Are you gonna even tell them, or are you gonna keep it just to yourself and hide and just pretend, or are you just gonna come out and just prove yourself? You're saying, not prove. That's not the wrong word. That's the wrong word. Like explain yourself and why you decided. Because let me tell you something. Like in Ethiopia, it's not like in the Western world or the quote unquote civilized world where your beliefs and opinions are going to be accepted um, as you please. It's not like that. Because the first reaction would be like, hey, obviously they're going to say the devil did something to you, and you missed your path. And then when you just speak again and be like stay adamant, they would just like say something happened to you. Maybe it's the video games, or it's the damn TV. Find excuses. So
Right. Like people take offense. It's kind of like the, maybe it's that it's hurting the tradition, right? That you used to be part of the group. You're saying you're not part of the group, whereas for you, it's more of a, this is actually where I'm at. It's not me saying I don't want the group or anything. You may even still like some of the traditions and stuff, but it's not. You're just being honest. Whereas
yes,
they see it as, you're coming against the group, you're cutting yourself off from the group. Yeah, I can get
yeah,
that. Even over here, right in the West, that happens. And also, I'm pretty sure a lot of people on this chat can say that when you start digging into, apologetics and trying to have a reason for stuff, it happens. Even if you're still like adamantly, I'm a Christian, or I'm even more Christian now, or I'm even more into what I was now than before, right? People start to question you, like, you what? You're not part of the group anymore. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. Can I do have two other questions, but like I'm sure other people want to say stuff,
Yeah,
so
I
I'll
got
just come back
something.
to me later.
All the stuff you've said, like relates to me kind of well. I mean, I've gone through the whole like telling people thing. It's not really too fun. But I mean, your first question, like your first thing, is something that I don't really care about anymore. The whole atheist agnostic distinction. Like, I'm not really too worried about that anymore. And the only reason I'm not is because when you talk to people of I don't know, certain like religious persuasions, they're gonna just treat you in the same ways if you like identify as either. Um, I don't know. Like when you're talking about like if you give them like an atheist title, right? Like they might treat you differently. Like they might like initially react in more severe ways, but when they actually talk to you and like hear some of the things you have to say, they're just gonna treat you in the same way. So
you you mean you
I
mean
don't really
towards atheist?
who me?
No, no, no. I mean, like, could you like repeat the question? Sorry.
Oh no no. So when you said what was it you said? Something like, I don't know why people, like, call themselves atheists because it's, like, too spicy. Yeah, that's it, it was too spicy, you said,
Yeah, they're kind of
you
too
said
much for me.
yeah, no, I get it, but, I don't know, I feel like, um, if you were to talk to, like, any like, pick out, like, a random Christian, they're gonna treat me and you in more or less the same way, like, when they're talking to us about, like, their religion, right? Like, it doesn't really matter if we, uh, identify in using, like, atheist or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think I hear
no
what you're saying.
the whole
Jerome,
if you-
I think it's dependent on how annoying you are.
I was gonna say that too, but
Yeah, like, so coming from the Christian side, and having a lot of family members and friends who aren't Christians. And by the way, Nati, I grew up in the Armenian Apostolic Church, which is an Oriental Orthodox church, and I'm not anymore. I'm a Protestant. I've had to actually go through having to justify my Christianity to a bunch of ignorant, culturally Christian people who aren't actually Christians. Like, they don't practice the faith. You know, they were whatever, baptized as kids, and that's it. And who had the audacity to say something like, I'm not Christian because I wasn't a part of the traditional church of my people.
I hear
Okay.
you.
And so I've had to, like, and I didn't even become an atheist or agnostic or whatever like that. And I've heard all the very ignorant comments made to friends that I have that are atheists or agnostic, who are very reasonable, who've thought through these things, who continue to think about these things. And then I'll get like someone who's never read the Bible, who says they're a Christian, versus someone who's read the Bible, who says they're an atheist. And then this person says something like, Satan has convoluted your mind to believe these things. You know, it's like, and you kind of go, man, like you just made a mess that I have to overcome now in having a conversation with this individual.
the
So like,
thing
I
is,
get it.
that's the thing that like a lot of I was going to talk about this. Like that's a thing that loads of Ethiopians actually believe, which I find kind of funny because my mom said something like that to me, initially anyway. Like what was said before was actually true to where I feel like open atheism in Ethiopia is basically not possible, because of just how the culture works. So like even like saying that you're agnostic is kind of risky, you know, socially anyway.
It is.
So
I want to
'cause-
double down where my friend Arthur said here, and just want to give you like a brief story to give you like what's going on in Ethiopia when it comes to like the mainstream Christianity that is being practiced. When you look at it from away, it looks like a normal Orthodox church governed by the Bible and doctrines from the like the councils from church councils from before, and just all the regular Christian stuff. But in practice, what actually going on is not actually like too far away from even the mainstream Christianity. So let me give you an example. In Protestant is the main. I don't know I don't want to deviate, but God Himself or Jesus Christ is the main figure that is being worshipped. Not like the Virgin Mary or some other angels, but in Ethiopia, to to my surprise and to you guys' surprise, the main dominant figure is Mary, Jesus' mom, so called, but I don't think she is because she's so far away from the Bible's Mary. She became something like she transformed to something else right now, and all the pictures, all the worship, all the songs, all the hymns, all the sermons are included or kind of wrapped in her. She's the wrap. They might say, oh, we believe in God, but don't forget how significant Mary is. I have nothing against Mary, but that's not the Mary I know in the Bible. I mean, um, the coverage she gets in the Bible is not much. If we talk in percentage, it wouldn't be 10%, would it? So, like, she doesn't have that much coverage, and yet here we are in the whole country. I believe it's almost 3 million people believe the orthodoxy, and that's what's going on. So
Yeah. You know, that like that's my thing when it comes to like traditional churches, and all churches, by the way, are traditional to a certain extent, obviously. But the more traditional ones that especially are intertwined with our cultures. Like, so I'm very sure this happens in Ethiopian communities, but like in Armenian communities, to say you're Armenian and to say you're Christian is an interchangeable word. Like if you say you're Armenian, it's just assumed you're a Christian. So all the people that I know who aren't actually Christians, who are Armenians, they get left out from a lot of conversations because it's like, wait, how did that happen? Right. And then they double down on their traditions. And the way they do that is typically like out of survivalism, right? So generally in conflict with Muslims and Islam, they've had to protect it more. And then there's these things that get passed down to like our moms, our grandparents and dads and stuff like that. And they're practicing it and nobody knows why they're doing it. And then if you even question it, it becomes, you know, like, what are you doing? Why are you questioning? Why are you questioning this thing everybody's doing? Like, everybody's kissing that cross. Shut your mouth and go kiss that cross, right? And you're like, why are we kissing that cross? Which is a question I had when I was like 5. I remember, so I was born in the mother see of the Armenian Apostolic Church. The town is called Echmiadzin. It's where the head of the Armenian Apostolic Church, the Catholicos, is, and the church there was I think constructed in 303 AD, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like it's one of the most ancient sites in Armenia. And I remember as like a 5-year-old going there, and I remember just standing there. There's no pews, you just stand, right? And then people were just like walking up and kissing this. It was some box with a cross on it. I have no idea what it was, probably some kind of a relic. And I remember asking my mom, like, why are we in line to kiss this thing? And I remember my mom just not having an answer for me. And that was, again, as a whatever 5-6-year-old, that really stood out to me. Why are we doing this thing? And here's where
I'm actually surprised she didn't smack you or assault you.
No, my mom smacked me a couple of times, and I deserved all of them.
Or told on you on your dad, hey, it's gonna be chaos if you see something like that. It's over to you. No dinner. You get slapped up everywhere. The neighbors will get involved. Hey,
so it was weird. It was weird because my parents are Armenians but grew up in Iran, so it was a whole different dynamic with Islamic influence. But when they went to Armenia, and I was born in Armenia, most people didn't know what's going on. Even some of the priests didn't know what's going on because of communism. And Armenia was like coming out of communism when I was like 5-6 years old. And so there's a lot of like traditional stuff happening that people didn't have theological explanations for. They just did it that way. And to this day, there's plenty of people that just do these things these ways. Now, what I'm concerned about, and I call myself a biblicist, I'm more concerned about, and I loved what you said, Nati. You said, the Mary they're presenting is not the Mary I see in the Bible. And that's like the wisest thing you can possibly do. Or it could even be right, like the Jesus they're presenting is not the Jesus I'm seeing in the Bible. Or even God. Like that, it's very important to go to the source of our religion and then say, like, as a Christian, you guys are presenting this thing to me that I'm not really seeing presented to me in the Bible. And what am I going to trust now more? Is your traditions? Am I going to trust kind of the way we've been doing things because we've been doing it as long as we've been doing it and that's just it? Or is it going to be beyond that? And that's part of the reason why I'm not Armenian Apostolic, and that's part of the reason why I'm Protestant. And I value church history and I love church history. But I leave it be where church history is, which is people just like me. You know, in 150 years' time, I'm going to be part of church history. And I'm probably not going to have the sort of influence that any of these really, really popular church folks had. But I also realize there's quite a bit of stuff that I probably reasoned through better than some of these guys throughout church history. And that's okay. Like, that doesn't make me feel bad about myself or better about myself. That's just the reality. I understand my faults. I know where I can go wrong, and I know where they could have gone wrong, and the stuff they could have said that was wrong. And I'm completely fine with that. And so that makes me rely to the best of my abilities on the teachings of the Bible. So if I think the Bible teaches that salvation is in Jesus only, and through trusting Jesus, and there's nothing I can do to gain it, because I think that's what the biblical text says. And then somebody else comes to me and says, but what you also need to do is care for the poor, because if you don't do it, you're not going to, go to heaven or something. My response is going to be, I think we should care for the poor, because that should be an outworking of our Christian faith. But I don't think that's necessary for my salvation, because, like you said, that's not what I see represented in the Bible. And then be able to rationally, have these conversations in proper discourse. I think a lot of us get disillusioned. And I know I was for a while. Like we get disillusioned from the context we raised in, especially if they're like heavier religious influence, and we try to kind of get rid of it, whether good or bad. We kind of push back at it. And again, in my life, I've seen myself get older and say, well, no, I can see like there's great value in that and that other thing and this other thing. They all have great value. And then bringing it back into my life.
Let me ask you a question. How consistent is your church in Armenia when you were was it the Apostolic Church?
Yes.
Forgive me if I made a mistake, but
no, it was.
How consistent was the doctrine and the practice was there while you were a kid and seeing things? Do things change, or is all the same? How was it?
Yeah, it's really weird, because it stayed the same. I mean, in my lifetime, it stayed the same. But when I look at the kind of, as a theologian now, like looking back on it and then trying to study the origins and trying to find out who said what and who had influence where, even within just the Armenian Apostolic Church, it's extremely difficult to do that. Number one, because we don't have a lot of literature. Number two, the literature we have hasn't been translated even to modern Armenian, let alone English. And so some of it's like really good and it's been translated and people were dealing with really awesome subject. My issue is because of so for sure, because of 70 years under communism, there haven't been theologians producing theological material in Armenia. So if somebody's out there and they can correct me on this, I don't think I'm wrong, but I think the last systematic theological book that was written by the Armenian Apostolic Church is late 1800s. So it becomes very difficult to deal with theological subjects that might have changed, but nobody's written it down. Or just wrong stuff people teach, because there were infiltrations by the KGB into the Armenian Apostolic Church to mislead people against Christianity. Like, this is something that's like maybe even recently coming to surface. The KGB specifically put agents who were atheists as priests in the church to just teach people random stuff that had nothing to do with Christianity. And people believed them and they practiced the stuff these individuals said to them. Because, in a lot of these places, they're villagers. They don't maybe know how to read and write. They're not literate. And they're like, hey, why would I doubt this priest? This priest told me to do this act 18 times. And they just did it, not realizing that priest is not even a Christian believer. So it was a way to infiltrate the church. It was a way to completely destroy and make the church look stupid. Which I think there's, over the last 30 years of independence in Armenia, there's a lot more, I would say, intelligent and well-rounded priests, well-educated priests that are trying to, either change things in the church or even put in their own doctrine properly together to present to the world. But it's Armenia is a weird. It's a weird example. Like, I wouldn't use it as the norm when it comes to like traditional churches because of various historical realities. So yeah, it's the best way I can answer that question.
Yeah. But to it looks like it's kind of it looks there is like external influence in church practices as well, which is crazy to believe when you mentioned about the KGB agents coming in and telling the priest to do this and to do that. But in my cases, one another thing I forgot to mention is throughout the years it's kind of inconsistent, especially even in doctrine. Like the doctrine changes. This is how you know something is up, or instead of more, you see more man movement than divine. You know, it's let me give you a simple, blatant example. This is what happened in my life. So I'm 25, just for a context, but when I was a kid, we in Orthodoxy there is fasting. It's kind of mandatory. I don't know about in Protestant. I don't think it's mandatory. I don't think it's mandatory in the Bible, and I don't think it's mandatory in most denominations. But it is mandatory in our church. So it's the fast before Easter, and there are certain like dietary restrictions that's going to apply. It's kind of vegan diet. You don't eat eggs, meat, and milk, and you know how the vegan diet rolls. So it's kind of like that. But there is one stipulation. So you can eat fish. That's what they say. So fish has it's cold blooded because it stays in the water. That's like the the general common consensus that's gonna happen. So it's allowed. Fish is allowed. So whenever it's time, it's the fasting time. It's like traditional, like fish, like people like the fish market goes up like crazy. So it's that time of the year, you know. It becomes tradition. So we used to eat fish. I witnessed it in my life, and I've seen it. And then after 5 years or so, I think one of the priests came up with this analogy and said the fish has blood in it, so it's kind of the same as like beef. And then it's kind of like you're breaking the fast. It's not applicable for the fasting tradition. So they banned the eating fish from during the fasting period. So it just banned it. And then people, no one said, how come we used to do this before? Why is this happening now? No one said that. The guy just gave a simple order, and that's it.
Wow.
And this happened in my life. I'm 25, so this is not very far. This is not.
Yeah, the thing is that priest would have gone against. I mean, he was authoritative enough, but he would have gone against church tradition for a very long time.
So
by the way, that same exact thing exists in the Apostolic Church.
In the Protestant church as well.
Yeah, in the Protestant church as well. Yeah. So there's no difference there. But in regards to like eating fish and stuff like that, like, you know, it's funny. Like, so because I have a lot of friends that know, obviously I'm religious, and they're kind of nominally religious, right? And during that time period, they will ask me if I'm fasting, and I don't. I generally don't. And when I tell them no, they get really shocked. Like it's sort of like I lose religious credibility because I'm not participating in this thing.
That's what it looks like. It's like you accumulate points whenever the church tells you so. But we're just so far away from the Bible, you know. It's crazy. If they just took the time and just taught the Bible and said, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but from the Bible, fasting is a way to like come closer to God. It's not something you have to do. It's not a commandment. It's optional, but it helps in a way while you're praying. It just makes you closer to. I don't know. It just make things
Yeah, you're right.
closer to God. So
Yeah.
that's how it goes. And then yet we have this. I'm just gonna call it nonsense. So it is nonsense. Because it's too far away. So you can't even. It's undefendable when you do. When you come up with stuff like that, and that's what those stuff happens. Like this is just one of the most things that happen. Just one example. There are things that go in detail. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I have a comment, and I'd like to know what everyone thinks about on what you're saying. So I know that in the higher churches, I've forgotten the exact terminology, but you know that higher seating churches or whatever, however it's said, important doctrines about the faith seem to be tied up more in rites and things that are done. Whereas in lower seating denominations, or how they said, important things about the faith seem to be tied up more in sentimentality and community, right? Not that there isn't community in the higher seating churches, but doctrine seems to be what things are. Doctrine seems to be encapsulated in what's done. And I think these are both, like I spoke with my dad a while ago about how in my church, right, my parish is part of a big church, right? And in this church, they delineate between or demarcate between between assistant pastors and pastors, right? Full pastors or whatever. And I was like, I don't see this in scripture. In scripture, it seems like you become a pastor, you're a pastor, and deacon is, you don't get promoted from deacon to pastor. Deacon is just another office, right? And my dad said this thing. He said, these are, it may not be fully right, but these are, they are methods to try and uphold, try and institutionalize things that need to be kept, right? So, like with doctrine, and I don't fully agree with, when it comes to pastors and all that, but with doctrine, we need to keep the doctrine, but the way that we're doing it seems to lead us away from the word and away from God, to the point that you can bring up something and be like, hey, we're moving off the track here. And people would be offended because they're like, no. This is how we do it. And you're like, but isn't the goal of doing this to be on the right track? And we're not on the right track. So why are we still doing it? But I'd like to know if people think that's what's happening, or if it's something else coming into play.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to doctrines, I mean, we could just say, like, we don't need even like dogmas to understand Christianity and the general notion. We could just say, read the Bible, follow the Bible, and simple, simple, easy. But in certain aspects, you might need doctrines and systems, I suppose, because not everyone is blessed with Bible, not everyone is blessed with knowledge, not everyone is blessed with history, not everyone is blessed with you need the understanding of the Bible. But what we have now is too much. It just the man-made stuff is dominant than quote unquote the divine aspect of it. So it's kind of hard to say follow one thing and leave the other. It needs a balance. In my opinion, obviously it's way off balance, and the church councils. We got the Trinity from a church council, for example. Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, and God the Father, they're all the same. You know, it's not in the Bible, but just they said they came up with it. I suppose, but it's not nothing wrong, but it is a way to teach the Bible to people so they can understand it or apply it in their life. And I don't know, it just needs the balance. But I don't think I should.
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about when I was speaking about primary things and secondary things. And then we all realize that any kind of a rational case for anything is going to require, you're going to have a generation of people that are thinking about it, and you're going to have a generation of people that systematize it. Okay. In any field you give me, this is the case, guaranteed. So if I take Aristotle and the metaphysics Aristotle is doing, and then you look 5 generations or whatever, 2 generations down, the metaphysics these people are doing is systematizing Aristotle's thoughts, essentially. And you get the very similar thing when it comes to the Bible in regards to primary things. But I think our issue is not necessarily over the primary things. We can all agree on the primary things. Whether it's church councils that got together to combat heresies and say, no, here's what we stand, or whether it's church councils that got together that said, hey, what are we willing to die for? And then said, here's where we stand. It's the secondary stuff, or it's the nature of somehow people thinking they can elevate kind of their views or whatever it is to the same level as scripture, and then therefore either leave people confused or leave people frustrated with the church. And then in my experience, because I work within apologetics, is folks saying like, dude, like I'm really disheartened from Christianity because of X, Y, and Z. And then my response has been, that has nothing to do with Christianity. Like that is not an essential thing in Christianity. You can choose to do that. You can choose not to do that. It's not going to matter. I know Jerome and I have had conversations around the subject, but the reality is that's there. The reality is there that some of this stuff even gets like culturally construed and communicated, and which also becomes problematic. And I think the best thing we can do is be as biblical as possible. Especially even if we're going to disagree with Christianity and say it's wrong or whatever, make sure that your disagreements are not a part of like your cultural issues or those secondary issues that was practiced in your upbringing that has nothing to do with Christianity, like zero, in regards to like the essentials of Christianity. And I've just realized in my experience that quite a bit of people are dismayed, have issues with Christianity because of those sort of issues, not because they think or they've looked at Christianity like in that detail to reject all the essential stuff. Jerome, you got something to say?
I mean, so I've been thinking about this for a bit. Might be way too simple, but I feel like people when they have their own doctrines, I guess it's probably simply because they've just read a part of the text in a different way to most people, and they've taken it I don't know, more seriously in their interpretation. I'm not sure how to describe this. So like when we're talking about the Ethiopians and their need to like do fasting, whatever, because my mom does this all the time. And she'll come to me at a random point in the year and she's like, oh yeah, I'm fasting now. You can't make this certain food for me. And like, okay. So I have to like adapt to what I'm doing. But what I think has happened is just that the church that she's in has just read some area of scripture and it said this part of scripture means that we should do this other thing. So I'm
Yeah.
not.
So that's fine. By the way, like let's just say so my friends and I have been reading through a book called Spiritual Disciplines. These guys are all a part of our leadership in our church. And we meet on Tuesday mornings at like 6 a.m. We have breakfast together and then we talk and discuss the book. And today's chapter that we had read was on prayer. And so we decided that, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to put into practice different kinds of prayer. petitionary prayer, Thanksgiving prayer, whatever, like, and then we're like journaling it and stuff. Now, that's not like every Christian doesn't have to do that. Like, I realize that is not a doctrine. Like, every Christian should pray, but not every Christian should be doing it the way we're doing it. And, you know, and imagine if I, like, even within our church, there's like 5 of us that are doing that. If I went and told everybody else they have to do that, it'll become problematic. Or worse than that would be, if you don't do this, you're in sin or something like that. Right? So there's room to decide as a church community to do something that everybody else isn't doing. And there's room for you as a church community to decide, hey, we're all going to fast together. Cool. That's fine. But again, the problem becomes when those things become essentials, when those things become especially somehow confined to people's faithfulness to Jesus or something like that.
You know what baffles me? I forgot to mention this. Is one of the most I'm going to say it's a mystery for me, because I saw in my country, and I'm seeing it here in the US as well. It's like, why don't people read the Bible? It just obviously it's a mystery, because you just cannot answer it. Obviously, you might say convenience, or it's more simpler to hear it, the verses and stuff, but why don't they hear it? Yeah, sure, of course, you might need to learn some history to understand what the context is saying. You know, you can't just open it and say read let's say you're reading something about the early Christians, and they're saying Pharisees, Sadducees, and you're going to be like, who the hell are these? You know, but know about history. You might require you to know like little biblical history, and you might need to understand some biblical literature, like how it's portrayed. Is it apocalyptic? Is it prophetic? Is it just a gospel? You know, you need to understand that, but it's not that hard. You know, even for me.
But that's the job of the church, and this is why I'm harsh with church folks quite a bit.
The church tasted the money. I'll have to be frank, because once they tasted the money, why would they even bother? You know.
Maybe that's true.
Because,
I don't make a general statement.
If you teach the Bible, I'm gonna make a wild claim. If you teach the Bible, it's like you're teaching someone how to fish. You're not giving them the fish. You're just teaching them how to fish. Once you teach them, you become surplus to requirement. But in reality, that's what we need. We need everyone to be as informed, as close to the divine book as possible, because what we have right now is like most people don't read it. Even in here we have biblical scholars, commentaries, biblical interpretations, Bible for kids, Bible for 25-year-old
college students.
Bible for 25-year-old, Bible for 30 years old. We have all of this variety, and no one even bothers to see it in both eyes. So I don't get it. It's too far away. I don't get it. It's like, I don't have the answer. I tried. I asked everyone. I tried to understand, and no one even bothers to read. It's not.
You know what you just did? You just gave him like the best opportunity in his life to promote his Bible software. You.
It's not my Bible software.
Well, yeah, but like, you know what I mean.
The software that I use. Hey, look, the software that I use helps me keep up my reading. Like, so I can internally in the software develop a reading plan. Like, I'm in the Gospel of Luke right now, and I say, well, I want to read the Gospel of Luke over the next 30 days. It just spits out a reading plan. It keeps me accountable to it. It's on my phone. It's on my iPad, and I'm able to do that along with commentaries and help that I need. But that's the thing. We have so much access. I was sitting down with a pastor today earlier on, and he told me that his grandmother in communist Armenia had become a Christian, and they were copying the Bible themselves. They would rip out pages from the Bible, pass it around to the members of the church, and people would copy these pages because they didn't have access to Bibles. It was illegal to own a Bible in communist Armenia. And like, I'm sitting here, just me, so me sitting here right now, I got a Bible there. I got like 5 Bibles here, by the way. I have a Catholic Bible. I have 2 Catholic Bibles there. I have like 6, 7 translations and 3 languages, 4 languages of Bibles just sitting here. And not to count the amount of stuff I have translation-wise on my phone and all that stuff, right? And again, but I still find that folks aren't engaging their Bible. And really, I think not the bottom line is that it's a discipline issue. People do not discipline themselves to do whatever it is like. So they'll have other disciplines, right? Like they'll wake up at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, get ready, go to work. Like that's a discipline they do so much, and then whatever else they think they have, right? But they don't know how to prioritize well. And those individuals that I know that know how to prioritize and have been for many years, those are the folks I want to be like. Those are the folks I want to pursue to imitate, because, you know, they've done that for 30 years. And I think that's the main difference, is an issue of prioritizing, finding it important enough, and then actually putting it into practice.
I think you're letting them easy by saying it's a discipline thing, because I promise you, when I say this, I have no benefit in defending the Bible, but what is, like, you have to know your priority here, because it's a matter of securing your salvation or not. That depends on from the Bible. It has to be like the number one priority. It's beyond your kids. It's your life. It's your soul. You have your own duty to do what's required from the Bible, because this is beyond you. This is beyond you. This is beyond the earthly matters or disciplines or duties. This is beyond your work. This is beyond your family, your dad, your mom, your kids, your brother, your sister. This is about your salvation. How are you going to do that? By following Bible verses from people? Or sure, that's good, but you have to take that as a supplementary material, not your dominant information for salvation, because the fact is here, because the proof is in the pudding. We know what's going on right now. Most people don't read it. They are too far away from the Bible. We don't know what's going on, you know. Let me give you an example. In the afterlife, most people think once we die, our soul just separates from our body and it just goes up there to join in the heaven, and we kind of get judged there. That's the common belief. That's what's going on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not. If you read the Bible, that's not what's going on. That's not what the Apostle Paul taught in his letters. It isn't. I think it's a bodily resurrection. Resurrection is not resuscitation. I forgot how to pronounce the word.
Resuscitation.
Resuscitation.
Yeah.
Resurrection is not resuscitation. It's a different matter. It gets complex. I'm not going too deep, but at least know the basics. At least know the basics. I'm not asking everyone to be a textual critic like a professor. It has to be a priority, no?
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely has to be. I mean, if you read
It's
the book
not
of
a matter of
Hebrews,
discipline.
so it is to a certain extent. So it's priority and discipline, because your disciplines follow your priorities, right? Because the same person who's not reading their Bible, let's just say regularly, watches a Netflix show for 2 hours a day. So it's a priority issue that translates into what they give their times to and what they discipline themselves into. But I agree with you. Now, I think Carl in the comments wrote, reading the Bible is not a salvation issue. Correct. Like, it's not like if you don't read your Bible, you're not going to be saved. And maybe you can correct me here, Nati, but in regards to what your intent was, I think what you meant to say is that this reading the Bible is directly connected to you connecting with God. Now, I would agree with that statement, right? It's not necessarily a salvation issue in the sense that if you don't read your Bible, you won't be saved, but you will know God
I didn't
less.
mean it that way. Sorry. Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, of course it's important. It ought to be important. Like, you want to know God, you think God exists, you think Christianity is true, and you want to know God, but you completely ignore his communication to you. It really doesn't make sense.
Before you answer that, I'm getting too tired for this, honestly. It's almost 1:30 now, so it's good talking to you guys.
You too, man. Thank you. Hey, you're one of the first of the British kind on this channel. Always remember that.
Will do. All right. See you later.
Man. See you.
See you later.
I wish I said later the way you guys say later. Henry, welcome to the conversation.
Hey guys, how are you? That's good. This is my first time on your show, Arthur. Thanks for having me. I can't talk long, Nati. I just want to kind of address a little bit of what you were saying there. You're saying I don't understand why Christians don't read their Bible, and I get it. I have the same question. I think it's you guys had touched on it. I think it's a discipline issue. I think if you look at if we take an analogy, like let's say eating healthy, we know that we're supposed to eat healthy, but I think we see it as a chore. Maybe you're gonna say no to the hamburger and yes to the salad, and it's kind of like a chore. It seems like something that you kind of don't want to do, but you have to do. And if you see it like that, then I think you might have the wrong reasons for eating healthy, right? That's in the analogy that I'm using. So I think if we kind of look at that, are Christians looking at reading their Bible as a chore, or are they looking at it as something they need? Look, for example, I have a friend of mine who's in his 30s. He's like 36, 37, and he's been overweight his whole life, and he just encountered a serious health issue that if he doesn't change something about, I won't get into detail, but if he doesn't change something about his life, he's probably gonna die. Okay, and now this guy is eating healthy, doesn't touch bad food, and now he's lost a lot of weight. And he's living a healthy lifestyle. He won't even think about touching an Oreo, right? And his mindset has changed about why he's eating healthy. His whole life, he knew he had to eat healthy. The knowledge was there that he had to eat healthy. He just never did it because his view of it was wrong. Like, he viewed it as like, it's a chore. I don't really want to do it. I know I have to, but I don't really want to. And I think I think a lot of Christians view reading their Bibles like that. They view it as a chore as opposed to like something that's that's their salvation, but not necessarily like salvation in the sense of salvation. I mean, analogically, like an analogy, it's saving them, right? Like a boat, like they're out in the ocean and they're drowning, and a boat comes and saves them. Like, they don't realize that that's gonna replenish their soul. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, that I think Christians just don't see the Bible, reading the Bible, as important as they should. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and to jump on that boat, to jump on that boat analogy, Christians, we maybe see it sometimes as like rowing the boat. Rowing a boat is not fun, right? But if you're in a turbulent thing, if the water is turbulent, you need to row the boat well, right? If you're in a rowboat, you need to row it well to be able to maneuver, right? But we see it as, man, rowing the boat isn't fun. It's like getting into a proper flow is just a chore. It feels burdensome. How would you say
Burdensome.
it? It feels heavy. Yeah, thank you, burdensome. But when we actually look out at the water, or we're almost capsized or something, we're like, oh, I need to row. But I don't know, in my so I think it's discipline in the mind, right? But when it comes to actually sitting down and reading, maybe the first few times you'll need discipline for it. But then once you get into it, after the first few times, it becomes something that you actually feel like you're getting life from, just from doing it, right? You may not read something very insightful, or read something that connects with you or helps you in that moment, but you're getting life from it. And but the funny thing about that, right, which I feel like, I know God has a sense of humor. I feel like God put stuff in there like as a sense of humor, maybe not as a trick or something, but it's just funny when we look at ourselves in it, right? The funny thing about that is that when it becomes more of a thing that's like giving you life, you like it, but then you start to see it as a cheap thing. You start to see it as, oh, this is like, okay, maybe I'm busy right now, so I'll do it later. It's just a hobby, and then you kind of put it to the side again. So discipline is needed in the mind, right? But priority or recognition of what it really is. And I think that's why, Natty, it's interesting. You sound like Jordan Peterson 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's why when Arthur, you said that the church needs to kind of talk about this. I don't know when it was, but the church seemed to bring people up in the church without putting the importance. So at some point, pastors, leaders, ministers stopped talking about the importance of the history or the importance of certain. Sorry, I'm saying doctrine, but when I say doctrine, I'm just saying a wholesale idea, right?
Correct.
Or a piece of idea that you get, not like this is something that we're institutionalizing into you so that you think in a certain way, but like certain ideas that may not be so apparent but are necessary to understand, right? I don't know how the church just skipped that, but for some generations we seem to skip it, right? And so when people don't know that, we go through this trial and error thing, and sometimes we go through trial and error and we don't, it never even clicks. We see the thing that's right and we do it for a while, but then we fall out of it again, and it never really clicks that there's an actual thought about it and stuff. And Natty, you seem like someone who's really deep-minded, because you mentioned some stuff that for many Christians I know
Yes.
has never clicked to them, that reading scripture, yeah, maybe you need to know some history behind it or some context. And I'm like, bro, you talked about understanding some context. Many people don't ever think about that. They just think of scripture like, oh, I'm reading the Bible so I can see God in the Bible, and so that I can see myself in scripture. And not knowing who the Pharisees were, the Sadducees are, when you start to abstractize all this stuff, you start to just think of it as a story about you. And it's like, that's not it, my guy. It's a book, it's a series of books or a collection of books, not written to you, not written about you, but they're written for you, right? They're passed on for you, right? So you get some stuff from it when you learn from someone's lessons or you learn from someone's life, right? You understand what it means to them. You understand who God is through it. You understand what God was saying to the person, to what it meant for the people, original people, to read it. And what do you learn from that? What's passed down to you? And I gotta ask, like, Natty, are you looking like for a reason to still believe in God, or like, are you looking for it to make sense, something to make it make sense? Even because, like, you're talking a lot about stuff at it's like the church is making it not make sense. And I hear that a lot. The church really doesn't make it make sense. But are you looking for something to make Christianity make sense?
As humans, of course, you need something to give you that drive when you wake up in the morning. It just says like you need a point in your life. What's your takeaway? Like what's the reason you are living for? You need that reason. I promise you, it's not easy for atheists. They're creating some stuff and saying, "Oh, life is this. Oh, life is just getting married and then eating." They come up with some stuff, but we as humans in nature, we need that something like to make like what's the takeaway from this life? You know, you need that drive. You need that something. So of course I need that, and of course I want it to be true. But unfortunately and very sadly, and the more I dig in, the more I explore, the more I teach myself, um, I see more human hands in there. I see more man-made stuff going on in there. I see more relatable things to me than God there. The Bible is supposed to be um, uh, all about God. Everything about God, from creation to revelation. What he did, what he said, everything about it. But sadly, it's not there. Uh, to be honest with you, I'm very envious seeing like Jews and Muslims, how devoted they are, how committed they are, how they are trying every day to come closer to God. That makes me, I'm jealous of that. But still, I'm an unbeliever, but I'm jealous of that because you just see them, you know, they love it. They say they sing songs, they practice um, they practice the religion. They're together. They have this community. They help each other out. They help out the poor. All of that. It gives you warm. It just warms your heart, and it is a good thing to see. But you know, in Christianity, um, obviously some things are subjective, but the more I go deep, it just is too much. It's too much. It's convoluted. You know, from practice, like from mainstream Christianity practice, it is away from the Bible. Okay, let's go to the Bible. When you go to the Bible, there are some contradictions. There are some things that doesn't make sense. There's some things you see what a man does, or a mistake what a human does. Of course, I'm not expecting 100% perfection from the Bible, but that's not the case. And you know, I try to live my life as I prioritize the truth and trying to apply like common sense in it and try to go with that as much as possible. And I don't like pretending. When I'm seeing fire, I'm not gonna turn away and say, let's just ignore it. I'm not gonna say that because that fire could spread, and I promise you that fire is all over the place in Christianity. So whenever you do that fire extinguishing, is another fire, is another fire, is another fire, and it's the fire.
So
And you just say,
sorry,
I've
let me
heard
just
it.
I want to comment on a couple of things that because I see your heart, I really do. And I've had to think through this and process this quite a bit in regards to like a distinction in religions, I guess. So like regularly I've had Muslims tell me, well, like, you know, we pray 5 times a day, like as though they're more religious than me. My response to them has been, I pray more than you because the Bible tells me that I should be praying without ceasing all the time. they pray 5 times a day because they have to, because it's legally required. And I would say legally, I mean like according to religious law, they have to do that. If they don't, they get in trouble. Where I have a freedom to do that out of the love of my heart. And so I do it as much as I want to do it. I don't just pray 5 times a day. I pray 15 times a day. I talk to God about all sorts of stuff throughout my day. And then maybe I have times that where I get together kind of in a more structured setting in my conversation with God. And it's just something we need to think about when it comes to that. The other thing is that we could be in quote unquote Christian and religious environments where people aren't actually practicing their Christianity. And then so what we're doing a comparison is people who aren't practicing Christianity to people who are practicing their faiths. And I would suggest that we actually make a fair comparison to people who are practicing their Christianity versus people who are practicing whatever faith that is. And you will see the same sort of zeal and love and not even the same sort, even more, I would say. But that whatever you're seeing is missing, I think you will see definitely.
No, I acknowledge. Oh, I'm sorry if I come. I acknowledge there are some devoted Christians there. I'm not ignoring them, but when we're speaking about someone, we're speaking about the majority or what we see every day.
Correct, but again, and I don't have a problem speaking about the majority. It's very difficult. That's the thing. It's very difficult because like if I go like right now, if we go and do an analysis of like Iranian Christians or Chinese Christians or something like that, and the work they're doing and the devotion they have and stuff is going to be very different. So yes, culturally, like in historical Christian countries, everybody will tell you that there's a decline. All the data shows there's a decline. But I'd like to also see it as a purification rather than a decline. Because it's a better thing, in my opinion, to have few people that are really devoted rather than a lot of people that has most of them not devoted with the appearance of devotion. And Jesus actually spoke against this kind of hypocrisy. Jesus rebuked this kind of hypocrisy, right? Woe to you who you say do this and don't do it yourselves. Like that's the sort of stuff that Jesus spoke about. And I think we're going to see that conflict. We've seen it always, by the way. We're not saying anything that church history hasn't acknowledged. Augustine does this in his book, The City of God, where he's talking about the visible and the invisible church, the real and the non-real believers and actually committed people to God. And so just it's very important to make those distinctions, I would say. In regards to the Bible, to the biblical text, it's important to know what it is that we're reading, and you're knowledgeable enough. I'm just making these statements and clarifying them for the audience. But it's important, like when we read the Bible, we're going to see the faults of human beings. We're going to see human beings being human and messing up and not living in accordance to their convictions to God. That's just what is in the Bible. And so let's not presuppose, I guess, when we're reading the Bible, we're just going to see perfection, or we're even going to see something. What's the word I'm looking for? Like
Mystical?
pure, right? Like, what was that?
I thought you meant mystical.
Yeah, like mystical or even like pure or something like that. Right? Like I know a lot of people that go, man, I read the Bible and there was like all sorts of crazy stuff in there, right? Like there's murder and rape and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, yes. Because the Bible records human beings for what they are. The Bible doesn't sugarcoat it, right? So a comparison to Islam would be whatever Muhammad does is the right thing. It's like the most righteous and holy thing you can do. And then you look at it and like intuitively, you know, Muhammad is doing stupid stuff. Just based on your human moral intuitions, you go, dude, that just can't be right. Or standards that he sets that are like really weird, like walking into the bathroom with a certain foot, everybody else has it. Like he becomes the moral kind of arbiter. Where when you read the Bible and you see David sleeping with his friend's wife and then having his friend killed, the Bible doesn't go, well, you know, like it doesn't justify David's actions. It actually condemns David, and God's word. It contains words of repentance from David. That he's wrong himself, he accepts it, and the prophet goes and rebukes him, and it's very messy and it's very human in that sense. And so it's important knowing what it is in the Bible that we're reading, and then coming to terms with that, because we realize that we're messed up in very similar ways. And what the Bible and what God is really concerned about is repentance that leads to righteousness, not just righteousness, because none of us get to that place like immediately. It's repentance that works itself out into righteousness. Work out your faith with fear and trembling, the Bible says. So that's very important. You guys, I'm almost like, I can feel like I'm losing my voice, and I don't like that.
Dude, it's been 3 hours and 35 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how you did that.
Well, I didn't. Folks jumped on here, and I think gave me more energy to do that. So I appreciate you guys. I'm going to say bye to you guys, and I'm going to say bye to everybody else.
Cool. Thank you, Arthur.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having
calling
us
in.
on.
Thanks, man.
It's never clicked to me to join the stream before. But, I've loved this. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So yeah, folks, it's been, what was it? He saw it somewhere. It's on there somewhere, the time period. Oh, yep, there it is. 3 hours, 36 minutes, 24 seconds. Folks, thank you, especially for those of you guys who've stuck around and gone and come back, and you're like, what? You guys still on? That's nuts. Yeah. I think whatever change I made helped with StreamYard, which is really, really good. And we'll probably be using it more. And then we'll see whether and how we can improve all of that stuff. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for jumping in here. Tomorrow night, we're going to 9 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time. We're going to go live again, responding to some videos that are being sent. Make sure you jump on Discord. If you want to jump onto our Patreon community, do that. That's patreon.com/Apologia Center. There's really cool stuff out there and on there. So make sure you interact with us. Blessings to all of you guys. And I will see you, hopefully, God willing, tomorrow.